Welcome to the Disciples of the Watch podcast.
Disciples, welcome back. And thank you for joining me for another volume of the My Life in 4 Songs special episodes. This time I have a special, very special guest, one that's long overdue. There's a lot of them, though, that I would add to that list, mind you, but let's just go with long overdue here for Mr. Joey Haney of the Rock Strikes 10 podcast. And don't forget, we'll have links to the show notes at dotwpod.com if you want to check that out. And please do, especially if you like music history and you like music variety, Joey's got you covered. You're going to get 10 songs every episode, no more and no less. I had a great hang with Joey, and I'm so glad to finally get this episode edited and out to you. Nate and I had a scheduling issue. Actually, we had a power issue. The power went out at my house, so we rescheduled, but that worked out pretty nice because then that got this episode. It got me to finish editing, and it got me to get it out to you a week earlier than I had initially planned, but nothing wrong with that, of course. Joey and I get into some great conversation. I'm real appreciative of his mother's tenacity and putting up with Paul Stanley's rants. You'll get to that, of course. Actually, you know, we should have a National Day of Acknowledgement for mothers around the world who had to take their children to rock and roll or heavy metal shows and had to listen to stuff that maybe they don't agree with or maybe that just really didn't enjoy. But yeah, Joey's mom's a trooper, like so many mothers out there. I've heard a few of these stories throughout these episodes, and if you've listened to them, you'll identify this is something that the good mothers and the good family out there will do for us. Not my mother, though. Hopefully she's not listening. Sorry, Mom. But truth is truth. You can't deny it. We talk about, he hints at this, and I kind of wanted to acknowledge it a little bit more. So at a friend, or I shouldn't say hints at it, he does discuss it, and he does give this person acknowledgement, turning him on to Prince. And it kind of harkened me back to Alex Alt's discovery of Prince on his own throughout, many years later than where we're talking with Joey. Joey got into Prince at an earlier age. And for me, I guess I was I enjoyed Purple Rain in its heyday when it was in the moment. And if you listen back to the Alex Alta My Life in 4 Songs, you'll hear me kind of talk about that. But as far as somebody who appreciated Prince, that became much later in my life. So for Joey, it became something that he acknowledged very early on in life. And actually, yeah, Joey's discovery, Alex had a similar story, but I think Joey maybe got a beat on this as far as his early just really recognizing how important music was to him. I feel a little bit left out on this one because for me, it didn't. I was kind of in my orbit and I enjoyed moments of it, but I guess it didn't. It took me until grade school before, second or so grade, third grade, I forget, second grade maybe, before I really realized how important music was in my life. And maybe it was one of those things you just kind of take for granted. And then as you go through the years, you start to appreciate it. So as the 80s rolled on for me, for one, I would definitely identify with the importance of music, but I'm appreciative of these prodigies like Joey Haney and Alex Alt, who learned at such an early age and barely out of diapers, if even out of diapers, discovering that this was such a huge and important piece for them. And they're still in it today, both of them podcasters. But to wrap up here with Joey, this little intro here, him discovering thrash, and he brings a song that I would never have expected to be playing on the My Life in 4 Songs. If you would have asked me when I first started this, if I would ever expect to play the song that you will be hearing in this episode, when we get into him discussing thrash metal, I would have bet even money that it wouldn't probably make an appearance on this show. And I would have lost that bet. So thank you, Joey, for getting that out of the way so I don't ever make that mistake. Although I'm not much of a gambler. Money's too hard to earn to give it away on such frivolous things. Maybe I'd bet $1. I don't know. But I digress. Joey Haney, we had a lot of fun. Before we get to Joey, though, quick, I just want to remind you, we had recent episodes, Best of 2023 Independent Music Special that just came out recently, and it's getting some great feedback, great downloads. A lot of people having fun with that. Some great music on there. Please check that out. We just released a worst to best for Rush, and people seem to be enjoying that as well. And we got another one coming up, but I'm not going to tip my hat on where that's coming. But in April, we will be, or should be, scheduling conflicts be damned, of course. But if that doesn't happen, if we don't have any scheduling conflicts, we get another worst to best that'll be coming up. So stick around for that. And then Nate and I will be back next week, and we'll play catch up, and we'll chat our usual fare at that point. Don't forget, kids, share this with all your cool friends and visit us on Patreon if you'd like to support the show. But without further ado, the man of the hour, Mr. Joey, the rock star Haney from Rock Strikes 10. Enjoy.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight.
It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to raise the curtain on the Muppet Show tonight.
All right, My Life in 4 Songs. I am hanging with Joey Haney from Rock Strikes 10. Joey, how long have you been doing that show?
Oh, good God. This is actually, we're getting on to the 12th year this year.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it was, I don't even know how many episodes without looking at it, but it's a lot. And I'm really proud of the show. It's a big to do, but yeah, I hope that even if I get 3 unique listeners out of this appearance, it's worth it. But also it's always great talking to Eugene. And, we haven't had, this is a long time coming, I feel. So thanks for having me on. It's an honor. I only go on shows I like and listen to.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. So this is the first time, so I'm glad at least I made the cut.
Oh, yeah. And there's only so many hours in the day. So
that's true.
Yes.
Very much so. Thank you for sharing a few of those hours with me here today so we can get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, I like coming on. Sorry. I was like, maybe I shouldn't tell that joke. It's a dumb joke. You know what's great about being podcasters, since we're both fellow podcasters, is you can do the show in your underwear. I mean, especially if you're doing a solo show, obviously, and you're looking good on video there. But I actually try to do the reverse. You can't see me, but I got dressed up for the show. But the great thing is nobody would think I was being pretentious.
Okay, sounds good. I usually try to be at least presentable for video. Even like Nate and I, we don't, and none of this goes to video.
Yeah.
There's times where I thought about maybe doing video, but I edit the podcast a lot to where it wouldn't, it'd be just more work, and
Sure.
I'd be worried about the fluidity between video and audio. But there are times where it's like, maybe grabbing snippets would be cool. But I know sometimes you're going to get people that are like, they just got up, they threw a hat on, they don't want to be seen, other than
Yes.
in a situation where it's like, hey, we're just having a conversation, we're not recording video, we're just recording audio.
Yeah.
I try to at least be somewhat presentable, or I'll throw a ball cap on if I'm not, if I don't do my hair.
That is funny you bring up like the YouTubers and stuff like that, because that every now and then I'll catch one and they get that Max Headroom head, like from editing. It's just like, yeah, okay, come on, guys, really? So
Yeah.
Maybe you ought to not do it. Most of us have faces for radio. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, and regarding music talk, you could probably do still shots of album covers or whatnot, or try to break it up in some fashion regarding the topic of discussion to make it look less like you lost your train of thought. And then all of a sudden now it's later in the day and the sun's over here.
And some do it really well, and good for them who do, but it's there's a lot of substitute teachers out there, a few shining stars and a lot of substitute teachers, but that's life.
Exactly. Well, let's get to the music. I always like to I like the foundation. I want to know where you're at when these moments hit, so as much detail as possible. Of course, as we flow, things obviously come around, but I like to get just to pick your brain and get to, laying that foundation. You come from a big family, you an only child, you adopted, were you hatched?
That's kind of like that. You popped me with that one. I do. So very boring middle class suburban. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Oh, origin story time. I'll try not to go like in my younger and more formidable years, but yeah, I have a memory, decently sized house, everything very boring. And I will attest, I am a big believer in like hardcore rags to riches. I mean, I think a lot of the best bands and best artists had something to strive for and had no, comfort landing behind them. Even somebody like a Van Halen, like they were supposedly all kicked out of their house for wanting to be professional musicians, so they needed to make it too. But yeah, I attribute that as kind of a weird like, oh, woe is me, like I didn't have a struggle, and that's probably why I'm not a famous musician at this point. I'm gonna go with that, but I have loved music since my first memories. A lot of my friends actually, the cliche is you get into music once you get into girls. But I was super, super early, and to the point where by the time I got into like kindergarten and preschool, I was listening to stuff that the high school kids were listening to. So music is my goddamn life. And I don't know how it happened either. I think it's independent on my part. There was music in my house, but we are not a musical family. Very, very boring. I was raised on like the cocaine country, as a lot of people like to say, the pop country of the late 70s and early 80s, urban cowboy. That record was definitely on rotation a lot in the house. I actually liked some of those songs even as a kid. It wasn't like the thing where you hate it and then later on when you get older it's like a callback and you start to like it now. I didn't go through a whole lot of that, so I still like some of those early Alabama songs and Oak Ridge Boys songs and stuff like that. I'll throw those down every now and then.
Alabama that's right where I got out, because I grew up with a country family. I had a uncle with the classic rock and the southern rock. Of course, back then it wasn't necessarily classic rock. It was just rock. We called it rock back then.
Yeah, it was rock because it stopped being rock and roll after the mid '60s or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, and so it's funny you mentioned Alabama. That's what sparked that trigger in me, where I'd go to the library and rent The Gambler on vinyl, or check it out. Between I guess getting into more heavier music or getting into rock and eventually heavy metal. I just remember Alabama was like, for some reason, I feel it's like my breaking point where I'm like, okay, I'm out. I'm done.
They were the Nickelback of country music of their day. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Always on the radio, always have a hit.
Yes. And I think I liked it at first.
I think that might be a first.
I think I liked it at first because I remember my aunts had it. I have aunts that are 4 months older than me. So we're, growing up, it was almost like cousins or maybe even part-time siblings. I don't know. And then my uncle was 2 years older than me. So we were always in their orbit, or I was. Mom would drop me off at grandma's house. I'd hang out with those guys, and mom and grandma would go to the bar. And I remember the one with like the big rig or something on the album cover.
Yeah. God. Oh God. It was a 40-hour week for a living. I think that's what it was.
Is that what it is? Okay.
I think so. Oh, yeah.
And I just remember at that point I was checking out, and my uncle was kind of an influence probably on that as well, because we're finding Black Sabbath and everything else going along the lines, and Deep Purple and the Kinks. But I just remember Alabama was like, okay, I'm done. Check it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think I've often credited my first favorite song because like I said, I would occasionally like some of these songs, but I definitely was inundated by pop, country, and Western. But I think my first favorite song was All the Gold in California by Larry Gatlin and the Gatlin Brothers. That's not on my official list, by the way, so you're not going to have to hear it. But I may have done it on karaoke a few times because of that.
Oh, really?
At some point in my life.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. I'm a tenor, so I just you have to just hold it to your ear and just find that tenor. I'm a soul growler. So
I kind of diverted you there when you mentioned Alabama. I got into a little bit of flashbacks.
No, I love it. Well, it's easy to cancel them out now because half of the catalog has stars and bars on it. So hey, I was a big Oak Ridge Boys guy. My grandmother, she loved I mean, I think it all came from my grandmother. A couple of commentaries about her real quick is she hated television, never watched television, never even watched the news. But 1 hour a week when the Statler Brothers hour was on, she would go to the back of the house by herself and turn the light off and watch the Statler Brothers. I still remember that. And she would, and you couldn't talk to her. Like, she was always like, you watch so much TV, she was one of those rot your brain grandmas. But man, if you said one word to her during the Statler Brothers hour, man, you were in trouble.
Not even a Lawrence Welk fan, huh?
No, that was before my time.
Understandable. But grandma, she wasn't into that world, huh?
No. And her favorite all-time singer was Willie Nelson. But just like a great, funny old lady would say, she couldn't ever mention that without immediately having to qualify, like, because she grew up on short hair Willie. So she has to do the apologetic. I just don't understand why he feels the need to look the way that he does now. I just don't understand.
Oh God.
So that's what I grew up with. So I think it was just the radio. I would memory, like you learn how to drive a car by watching somebody drive a car sometimes, which I did. But is the radio dial. I noticed that, like, oh, I heard something different when this motion happened on the dial on the radio. So like a little kid in his diaper, probably like reaching up and turning the dial. And literally, I think that's how I found rock music, was by my damn self, because Mom and Dad were no freaking roadmap, unless I was going to get into stuff that my old man was into. And even if it's stuff I got into later, like obvious shit, like, the Beatles and the Beach Boys and stuff like that. But I was never going to listen to Jimmy Buffett, that's for sure. And I still don't. I don't care that he's dead. Yeah, I think it was just like finding it. And then I had a next door neighbor who was this guy that was like, I think about 8 years older than me. He was my first best friend. He was like a big brother to me. He turned me on to everything cool to this day that I still reference as being like upper echelon cool stuff. So I got into Prince, Kiss, Ozzy, and the Ramones just based off that one guy. So yeah, that's really, it was all over after that. And I was born in 79. So by the time I was 4 or 5 and really starting to just learn things and memorize things, to me, and I don't think it's nostalgia, I could prove this scientifically, 83 and 84 are the peak year, the 2 peak years for pop music. Like anything that's in the Hot 100 in 83 and 84, the massive amount of variety, the great songs and everything. I do believe out of any year in any decade, that is the absolute peak of the Hot 100, because everybody's invited. You go look at any of those charts, you'll find bands you like in there, Gene.
Oh yeah,
and you'll find all timers, you'll find newbies. Everybody's invited. Everybody's listening to pretty much all of these songs, and it's a beautiful thing. And I've never been very big on separatism, so I just love the fact that there was a moment in time where everything was really great. And I think it's the quality of the music. I think the industry's riding high. Everything's good. 83, 84, like, man, I that's kind of one of my only regrets. Like, man, it'd be really cool if I was in high school at that time.
Oh, definitely.
But I was not. So, and you're a little bit older than me, I could tell by your story, because I listened to you. But a lot of similar things that we heard for the first time. You talked about Van Halen in your episode. Man, that was an absolute next level game changer. I wasn't quite sure. I had it sussed out what I wanted to be by the time I was 5 years old. And it was a tie between I either wanted to be a game show host or I wanted to be a rock star. And it just turns out I wanted to be David Lee Roth. So.
Which is both.
Exactly. Yeah. You just see him right now turning the wheel at the end of Hot for Teacher. It's like, yeah, that's what I wanted to be. Yeah. 1984, the record, Purple Rain's out. God, I can go on and on. Mental Health, Stay Hungry. I got into all of that at that same time.
So yeah, you were pretty young at that point then as well.
Yeah, like I said, I was about to hit kindergarten, but all the girls and my mom put me definitely in a private school. There was like a church-run private school, but it was K through 12. Man, it was everybody.
Oh wow! So
you'd see all the ages going through the halls, and just even though we're all walking in single file, still it's like you see the girls in the private school outfits, and they've got Adam Ant buttons on and Wham buttons, but also Twisted Sister, and like they sneak that stuff in there,
What is that? A Twisted Sister pin?
on your uniform!
I noticed that early on. Even before I realized why girls were important, I knew it was somehow, even at 5 years old, just for that reason. It was just, yeah, like, you know, when you watch movies like Dazed and Confused, you get like, man, I wish I could be like rolling around at that point. That looks like a lot of fun. But I think 83, 84 are very, very similar when it comes to like, man, there was a lot of great shit going on there. Just, I guess like, you know, 70 through 85 is kind of a peak era. I mean, I existed for a little bit during that time, but I still believe in my heart of hearts that is the best year, those 2 years, but 84 for sure, best year for pop music ever. And yeah, I still look back on it a lot, but I like to look forward too. We'll talk about new bands later too, but yeah, sorry. Where should I focus in on? The
Well,
first
real
song
quick, before
that
you
made me a fan?
before you get to that part, because you went on about how the music was kind of hitting in a way that peak in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a music historian, you know, your show, you cover a variety of things and you go through different years. And I've been doing that with the time travel radio. And it feels like it was difficult from 1970 to 1979. Some years a little bit easier than others to pick.
Yeah.
32 songs, which I was doing at the time.
Yeah, without repeating a ton of artists, you know, like 5 Black Sabbath songs, you know, or something.
Well, and I didn't repeat any artists, but I would bring Black Sabbath back because they were the kind of the linchpin of the whole thing. Like, where do I start? And I'm like, when did Black Sabbath's first album come out? I'm like, okay, that's where I'm starting this whole time travel radio thing. Yeah. And I kicked it off on
February
that point.
13th, 1970, by the way.
And I got to 1980. And I hit a wall of there's too much.
Yeah.
To where I had to break it up into 3 episodes. And that is only the beginning, because I know when I get to 1981, 82, and then when you get towards 83, 84, 85, like you're talking, I am probably going to start pulling what's left of my hair out, trying to figure out which songs I'm going to carry forward. Now, I already broke it up into 3 episodes. 1980 is broken up into 3 episodes.
Wow.
And that worked out perfect for that year, because once I decided to go and do it that way, I'm going to have like I have the radio friendly type, you know, the bigger artisan one. And then the next one, and then there's one that's going to be like the deep cuts. And then, you know, maybe a little bit of blend of punk. And then I'm going to go deeper cuts, I think, on the last one. So that helped facilitate to where, okay, just making that decision to break them to 3 was like bing, bang, boom. Episodes are pretty much there. I gotta put the pieces into the different places. Well, like you're talking with getting towards that year, getting in towards the mid 80s, I just know that it's going to be insanely hard. And, you know, and maybe I pull away from pop and just more focus on the rock and metal or hard rock and metal.
Sure.
I'll be seeing what's happening there, but yeah, you're right, man. As we get into that time frame, I'm going to have a battle.
Oh, dude, since you brought up 1980 as a little pregame show to what you got going on, if I may plug my show a little bit.
Absolutely.
Years ago, I did a thing with my best friend Chris, who's the C of CNJRadio.com. And he was born in 1980. I was born in 1979. He was going to go move to Japan for a couple of years to go to school. And so like the going away present, or the bit that we did was, we did an 8-parter called the 80 from 80, a little play on the ESPN thing. But I chose 80 random songs by 80 different unique artists in 1980. And I handed him the songs and I told him to put them in order of what you. So I want to hear how fucking random that year is. Even Jermaine Jackson has a good record out in 1980. It's insane. And then you also got like a band like Killing Joke, who's bridging the line between like punk and metal and hardcore, and all of it's there. I mean, like 80 is a killer year for metal, but there's so much going on. And then you got, they're putting country on the radio. Everything, soul, disco is still kind of happening. Like it's bizarre, man. And the other fun thing about like the beginning of any decade is every established artist hitting the panic button, as we like to say, and like, what's next? What they have to be on the cusp of like, what's going to be happening? What's the thing for this decade? And it's almost more fun when they're wrong, you know, like a Music from the Elder thing, or, you know, whatever. So it's so fun. That's why people love disasters like that in music. It's the car crash effect. But I think every artist more than any decade that I could think of really hit that panic button in 1980. And I was like saying, I think there's only one artist ever that was putting out records on the regular in the 70s and hit the 80s and totally just didn't fail, or he didn't get more famous or less successful or more successful. And that was like someone like a Tom Waits. He doesn't have an 80s sellout record like everybody else does. I think everybody else, even in his ilk, Neil Young has one of those records. Like, I mean, nobody was safe from like, okay, synthesizers, here we go.
Yep, electronic drums, here we go.
Oh my God. Everybody did it. I think Tom Waits is the only guy. He's the only guy with integrity, apparently. So
yeah, people forget about that when they accuse of 90s artists of being influenced by what was happening with grunge, that they forget that this has been happening probably since the 70s, but especially I think it hit its peak, at least as far as a launching point, in that 80s, in that late 79, 81, in that area, maybe even further.
And nobody has the luxury of being the Beatles. Like, they're the only ones that could be like, hey guys, and show up to the party with a different suit on. Like, hey, you weren't wearing that last week, man, you fucking poser. Like, but everything's fine. Like, hey, I'm here. Like, everybody else had to succumb to like, just like, you fucking posers, you sell out. What are you doing? Like, Beatles, like, that's why a lot of people probably hate the Beatles, is because like, man, they could get away with doing all this stuff because there was no blueprint for what we could do.
Yeah.
So they got away with everything. Yeah. People don't talk about that, but it's like, yeah, they did.
Well, and their sound even evolved.
Imagine if they'd have been around in 1980.
Yeah. I would be very curious to see what they would have had if they were collaborating in the 80s still.
Yeah. I always think of that. Doug Stanhope is the comedian.
Yes.
He one of my favorite little bits that he's done, and he's fun. Anybody that drinks a lot will like Doug Stanhope, or just blue humor. And I'm not just pointing at Eugene, but he was like, people talk about like, oh man, what would Hendrix be doing if he was still alive? Like, man, he'd be throwing it down. He goes, you don't think that he would be playing the halftime show at the Super Bowl with the Black Eyed Peas? Like, don't kid yourself, man. He just has the luxury of being dead now. Like, they Kurt Cobain was like, he had the luxury of dying young. I've even said that out loud before. Like, man, if Hendrix is still alive, like, he may not even be as famous. He'd probably be like playing my local blues festival every year or something like that. I could go see Jimmy play for free. Oh my God. I'm like, no, he'd probably have done some lame shit that we'd be embarrassed about. You stick around long enough, you'll do some embarrassing shit, and I should know. Most of my favorite bands have embarrassed me multiple times over my life. So yeah,
it happens.
And we don't even have to get into metal, talk about embarrassing moments. Like, well, we can, maybe we don't want to. So yeah.
Yeah, speaking of embarrassing moments, let's get to that first song.
Oh, not embarrassing at all.
Okay, perfect.
I'd be remiss if I didn't have the band that got me into rock and roll.
Oh, nice.
Be on this list, and I mean this. And people could put this band on their playlist, and people would think you're being ironic or whatever, but not me, because from a person, like I said, I talked about the country western upbringing. My mom was a big Air Supply fan. So by a technical standpoint, I guess the first rock band I got into was Air Supply. And, you could debate whether they're rock or not, but we'll just say for the fact that they weren't country, they're rock. It's like people that call anything that's not classical jazz. There's old guys that talk like that. So yeah, I actually liked Air Supply. Still do, for that reason, just nostalgia and all that. Good pop music.
Oh yeah.
But my own, like the first thing that was my own, and like a lot of kids from my generation, we were raised by a goddamn genius by the name of Jim Henson. And I guess even the previous generation, because Sesame Street was around since the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Anyway, but yeah, The Muppet Show was like my first favorite show. And pretty much every episode, they would have Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem come on. And I didn't know these songs to be covers. I just assumed that they were all originals. But hey, ignorance is bliss. But the band that actually got me into rock and roll, no bullshit, the first hard rock band I ever heard was Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. And I had probably a handful of Muppet records. So those were the first records that were my own that I played in my room on my damn Fisher-Price turntable.
Nice.
And my first real favorite rock song of all time was from the Muppet movie, and that was the Dr. Teeth segment, the what do they call it? The montage, where they get things going. And it's the song Can You Picture That? Still love it to this day.
When I saw that, I immediately thought Bill Lindsay from Impaler, whom I had on this show doing the My Life in 4 songs. He was the first person I thought, who's going to really appreciate this? And that's Bill Lindsay from Impaler. Mice. The shock rock band Impaler. Because I don't know if you heard his episode, but he waxed nostalgic on the Mickey Mouse Club and stuff like that. And those early years. And he's big, and he's constantly posting pictures of nostalgia from the 60s and the 70s and 80s and stuff. He never grew up, and God damn it, you got to appreciate that. Yeah. And I'm still a big Muppets fan. I literally just got back I was running around running errands, and I saw an Animal Funko figure, and I bought it. So I literally, like, a little full circle there, I bought that today, and no embarrassment at all. It's still some of the best stuff. Hey, not for nothing, but if you didn't catch the series from last year, that Mayhem series on Disney, where they focused strictly on the band, I was really nervous that it was going to be a bad show, because I'm like, man, is it one of those things where the fun characters, like, it's going to be too much of a good thing, like the Nutty Professor sequel or something like that? Man, that show's good. It's got good heart. If you're a music guy, if you're a music fan at all, anybody out there, like, it's a cool show. Go check it out. And it was, I was more nervous than anybody that it was going to be like, oh, this is going to be kind of lame, and they're going to be a little too modern or something like that. But no, it worked out well. It's a good balance in there. So yeah, still a fan. And if Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem doesn't exist, then I'm probably not talking into this microphone right now. So they got to be on this list. That's a pretty strong statement. Yeah. I mean, real music played by real musicians in a studio. That's the other thing. Like, obviously pulling the curtain back here, but every one of those songs that you hear on those shows were actually recorded in a professional studio by people who love music. And I don't think it's like that for a lot of these other kind of things. Like, that's a lot of commitment right there. Yeah, it seems like it's become a paycheck more than it is the art for some. Yeah, one of the few people that when they died, I cried, and that was definitely Jim Henson. He's dude.
Northern lights of Texas, I keep it underneath my hat. Aurora Borealis shining down in you picture that?
Oh, wow. Can you totally
Sesame Street, by the way, started in 1969.
Whoa. Yeah, and it's still going on. Like that's an institution right there. That's
Absolutely.
got to be one of the longest running things ever. Like they've definitely surpassed Gunsmoke at this point, or one of those, whatever that show was that went on for 100 years.
Regarding age, where are you at roughly at this point here when we're spinning some Dr. Teeth in the Electric Mayhem?
Oh, that's an easy 3 years old. For sure, that's like 3 years old. Like it's Sesame Street Muppet Records. And I definitely, between my grandfather and any of the Muppet and Sesame Street books on record, like with the book, that's how I learned how to read and spell with those things. Because, so yeah, even just something like that. Like, I don't know if at the time they looked at that as like kind of merchandising or cash grab. But those things are very important to me. A lot of parents brag on their kids that they read at an above age level. Every parent does. But I definitely was, just because of that reason, for that one reason only. I actually learned how to spell through MTV and Billboard magazine too, by the way, because all the big words from some of the song titles and even the record labels and the album titles, I saw them all spelled out in front of me through those two mediums. I became a great speller, strictly based on a lot of this music-based media. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of music and education.
Is Animal your favorite member?
Man, I've never actually been asked this. I mean, like people treat Tommy Thayer, but I would say, yeah, overall he's the best member, with Dr. Teeth a close second. Let's go with that. But the whole band rules.
I mean, I know there's a lot of gang violence involved regarding Sesame Street versus the Muppets. So where do you fall? Do you wear red or do you wear blue?
Oh, Muppets all the way. I mean, nothing wrong with Sesame Street, but I'm here to have fun.
Yeah. If you want someone to get your back, you better, I think you pick the team with Animal on board.
Yeah, and they've got like 8-foot fucking monsters in the backstage area too. So I mean, you can't go wrong. Like you got little bitty like little tadpoles, and you got big ass monsters. Like anybody that's seen the Alice Cooper episode knows that. Like they're all there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean,
and the stars involved. Yeah. Well, I guess Sesame Street had their stars as well.
Yeah, the only metal thing about Sesame Street is the count. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I guess Snuffleupagus represents doom metal. So we'll go with that. Look at all these comparisons. This is all I'm not like My Hero Roth. Like I don't recycle jokes as much as I can, but yeah, I've never made the Alabama Nickelback comparison. Like I feel like that's almost groundbreaking in a sense. And then I got Snuffleupagus as the mascot for doom metal now, and I feel like that's very accurate. And I like some doom metal every now and then. I like Paul Bear. I'm friends with Pinkish Black. What?
I know that I don't like that story, and it's terrible. That's what I know.
So moving forward here, I mean, just to
good luck
to precede the show. Not that I'm bored with the subject or anything like that. Actually, yes. I'm getting more into doom metal. The more I do this show and work with my co-host Nate and work with the people at KFAI, I'm getting more into doom, black, and death.
And I try to listen to a lot of different things from a lot of different genres, and you will occasionally. I lamented a few weeks ago, like being a music fan, especially a rock fan in the 21st century, you literally have to become an archaeologist, because you're not gonna discover a whole lot of stuff just going with the flow. You gotta read a lot. You got to listen a lot. You got to be active AF. So, yeah.
And that's the beauty of podcasting too, is sometimes you're finding people that are in your world, in your orbit, or however you want to look at that, to where you can find those kindred spirits, to where your discovery is made easier because of people like us.
Yeah. And I love it. I like when I'll get random messages from people that do podcasts, or my friends. Like, I used to get oh, hey, Joey, you'll like this band. And this is when I was working in record stores. That's something I never really want to hear more often than not, because it used to be like, oh, yeah, really? But then after a while, you're like, wow, this is what you think of me? I will, I know that sounds awful, like it's saying don't talk to me, but I've heard that so many, oh, Joey, you'd like this. And if you take music really seriously, you actually get offended whenever it's something bad. And so I was like, man, but when a podcaster, I hate to sound snobby about it, but someone like you or LC or somebody or Baco, and a handful of other people, BJ, if they're like, hey, you should check this out, then I know that's probably going to be something I like. And that's what's really killer about this community. All right.
Well, and that's one thing too. If I ever do like tip you to an artist, I don't take offense if it's not something you like. It's just sometimes I think, oh wow, I'm familiar with the stuff you like, and this appeals to me, and I feel like there's some crossover here. Because I've had that even with my co-host, where I'm like, oh my god, dude, you're gonna love this, and I'll play for me like, oh, it's all right. Like, what? Yeah,
nothing worse than that too. Like it really, yeah.
I've become accustomed. That's why I don't take it personally. If I usually don't try to do follow up. I will reach out to somebody and say, wow, I listened to your show, and that band you played reminds me of this band over here. Check these guys out because I think you'll like them too. I don't follow up. If they enjoy it and they learn and they buy that stuff, or if they invite that band on or something like that, then that's awesome. I've done my work, and whether they take it or leave it, that's completely up to them. I don't get involved beyond what I've already done. I don't follow up with, okay, give me 10 reasons why you do or do not like that band.
Yeah. I mean, I would never do that. I don't go that far, but you are a better man than I, Gene. So I like the idea of not following up, because they'll tell you if they like it. Like, to me, that's only something that could benefit them. If they're like, oh yeah, I like this, that'll kind of put you on the list for future recommendations in a sense. Like you don't want to be too far gone where it's like the guy that keeps getting invited to the party and says, no, I'm busy that night. And then you stop getting invited.
Yes, exactly. I'd rather people just accept it and, do with it what they will. And who knows, maybe it's a miss every once in a while, and then every once in a while it's a hit. But usually I tend to do that. I guess some of it's specifically driven, but that's more in the podcaster world than just doing a blanket post on social media saying, hey, wow, if you guys dig this band, you should check out this band. Because I'm not going to say they're the same, but I'm going to say there's something that kind of ties them together that may appeal to you depending on your fandom from the bigger artist or this other artist.
Yeah. And the thing I keep thinking of when this topic gets brought up is something from the last years, like the rise of Ghost. It was very much a love it or hate it band. I don't even know if I officially heard where you stand on that, but where are you on?
Okay. I was
it a first album and then I'm out kind of thing, or is it?
I think it was like I started to get in, and then it became this chasm. On the one side, we've got the fans, and the other side, we got the haters. And then there's this huge V-shaped drop off to where there's like, well, good luck climbing, you climbing out of that pit, or you have to pick a side.
Yeah, it's brutal. Thankfully that was one of those where it was like first album real early on. And it was probably just because of the handful of endorsements they were getting from a lot of cool heroes of mine,
Metallica,
like Halford and Hetfield and people like that. Yeah. So I went in on it, and my immediate thing is that it's that thing that Kiss likes to say a lot: people that listen with their eyes instead of their ears. And like, I heard so much Blue Oyster Cult on that first album.
Yeah.
and yeah, they do break down into some of the guttural death type stuff because they're all from fucking death metal bands originally. So it makes sense. But like, I love the idea of like bands like that are like, okay, we still like this, but we want to write something that might last a few years, like that kind of thing. And that's another reason why I like Night Flight Orchestra so much, because they're out of the same kind of ilk. But like with the Ghost thing, like I just heard BOC and a lot of classic rock stuff, and I got the vibe of listening to Shout at the Devil when I knew I wasn't supposed to, and I hadn't felt that way in forever. And so it was, for me, it was just one of those, I'll follow these guys into the sun, and I'm still a fan almost just for that reason. But I like the records enough still, so that's nice. But yeah, anybody that says Merciful Fate, I'm like, what are you listening to? Because you might see it, but I sure as shit don't hear any of that. I mean, do you?
I think it's more the the lyrically maybe that they're kind of leaning on a little bit of that material, or similarities. But
it's satanic pop metal. Like, by definition, it is Satan music because they are strictly singing about the devil more often than not. So it's satanic pop metal, which is, still a new thing. And that's great. Like, there's, like Twin Tipples is a satanic doo-wop band. That's fucking phenomenal. So yeah, I'm just getting the whole thing. Like, I like I think the hardcore old school old guy metal fans are mad at Ghost because they don't sound like Merciful Fate, even though they kind of look like King Diamond. Like, that's what he kind of looks like, or he looks like somebody that'd be in a Norwegian black metal band, but they don't sound anything like it. And I think that's why they're honestly mad about it. That's what I think, at least.
You kids, get off my lawn.
Yeah, I don't get the hate part of things. I think I just kind of got into it, and then it was like they blew up. Then it became that hate them and love them, pick a side kind of a thing, to where I kind of just was out at that point. I'm like, well, whatever. I'm listening to other stuff at this point, but
like, it wasn't worth it.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even sure why. It's almost embarrassing to be like, well, this is, there's all this energy attached to this band, and it's polarizing.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, I don't need to talk about it. I don't need to argue about it. I don't need to, but I think they've always, I dug that first album, and I've purchased stuff. I've purchased the EP they did with the covers. I picked that up recently. Yeah. The previous album, what's the one that
Prequel?
Yes. I found that. And I think I bought it just out of spite, maybe just to the haters.
There you go.
To where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick this up. I'm listening to it with my own fresh ears, and I'm not going to worry about other people. And I'll post it on Facebook. And if people want to come at me sideways about it, it's like, why are you so worked up about a band that you don't like? Usually if I don't like something, I move on with it. Unless, of course, it's people that I'm driving with and trying to zipper merge and all that stuff. Then I'm angry.
You can go fuck yourself.
I can move away from that in musical world, because I appreciate what I like, and I appreciate that a band that I don't like can bring other people happiness. And why not have more happiness in the world instead of a bunch of people arguing like a bunch of twats? Like, you're going to pick, like you're going to change anybody's mind. It's like politics nowadays. You're not going to change people's minds. A lot of times they're so deep into what they think they know that good luck getting them out of that rut.
Yeah.
So that's why I post I'll post what I post, and comments be damned. It's just, I want to celebrate the music, and if people want to engage and have a good conversation, then that's part of the reason I like to do it. But if they want to just get on there and go, that band sucks, it's like, okay, whatever, fine. Nobody's going to engage with you, because you're just another person who's spouting off about hate than you are about a celebration of something that other people enjoy.
Nice. I like that. I endorse this rant as part of my episode. I really do. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of your episode, we got to get back.
Yeah, no, but I'll say, like, I'm going to lean back into this list here by saying, wouldn't it be great to get that feel back? Like the first time you heard Shout the Devil, first time you heard Master of Puppets. So
absolutely,
that's a beautiful thing. And I even got like Alive and Live After Death vibes with that double live album of theirs. I'm like, man, this is how it should be for me. That's just me. But yeah, man, I love that. I've often said that nostalgia is a beast that you cannot kill, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Yes.
So
I think that's part of what sometimes keeps us going. You have a bad day, and if you can put on that song from when you first heard it back in the 80s or so, depending on your age, of course, just to get all that bullshit out of your head, it's well worth it.
Yeah. It's like, why do I still like Jesse's Girl and Working for the Weekend? I think about that sometimes. I'm like, man, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's that, but yeah, the craft is there. All right. Speaking of craft. So my second pick here, I referenced, obviously, by the way that I carry myself in a lot of the sidebar action, I'm clearly a David Lee Roth fan. Anybody that's a friend of mine knows this. So I recall on your episode, like, you went really hard on 1984, and I'm glad you did, because that puts me at ease a little bit, because I was definitely going to go there. And I'm not doing that because of you, but I'm glad it's already been basically kind of talked about in this series within your show. The 1984 was huge for me. I've already talked about this, but like the record, I got every 45 from that, all in on that. It's a perfect album. It's perfect production. There's no filler on it. It's just, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous record. And I could listen to it. It's in my top 5 of all time, no doubt. I did a Desert Island episode a few years ago. Look it up. It's definitely, it tied for top 3 albums of all time for me.
Now, that begs the question then, how do you feel about hearing Jump now?
I can still absolutely listen to Jump, and I still love it.
Nice.
Turn it up every time I air drum. I've worn the shit out of my steering wheel just based on even just something like Jump. Like, really.
I hate to see your rental cars.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not a power drummer. I'm just
okay.
I
it
am a
takes more time
drumline kid
over the length of a vehicle's life.
Yeah, I like the accuracy and not so much. I'm not a power hitter. Even something that's been, you've heard 9 billion freaking times, like Every Breath You Take. I do, my enjoyment of that is kind of where is it on the kit on my steering wheel if I'm not in freeway traffic, if I'm just cruising down the regular roads and whatever. And I'm a safe driver, by the way, no wrecks, knock on wood. But yeah, like just that thing, that's the drumline kid in me. But yeah, like even something as obvious and as basic as Every Breath You Take, like you listen to like Stuart Copeland's drumming, it's like, man. And even like going back to Alex Van Halen, that guy, people don't talk about him too much. Obviously, he's got a pretty famous sibling there, but that guy's the man. Like, I mean, honestly, like I don't know where to go after, the RST and LEs, like Peart, Bonham. I mean, to me, I stop there and I go, man, it's probably Alex. It's probably Alex. And maybe after Keith Moon, he'd probably be upset if I put him over Keith Moon. But yeah, he probably is number 4 or 5. Guy's fucking great.
You know what?
It's a shame he'll probably never get behind a kid again.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, but yeah, it feels like you're right. One thing that he reminds me of in a way like Alex Lifeson, where they get a certain amount of kudos, but it's like, I don't think you really understand what the level of musicianship you're dealing with. And that's where you get to more of the musicians will definitely be the cheerleaders that move those type of artists forward. And actually, I recently on Facebook had a memory come up regarding me bringing up Alex Lifeson, saying, I'm telling you guys, he doesn't get enough respect. And I had people coming at me saying, dude, he was voted best guitarist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about popularity contests. I'm telling you, there's a level of musicianship that is not appreciated because he wasn't flashy like Eddie Van Halen. Malcolm Young would be another artist in that kind of fashion.
Oh,
to where,
dude, Malcolm and Steve Clark as riff guys, dude, the best.
The musicians who talk about them more and that really draw attention to those people, I think help rise that cream a little bit more to the top to where, then, they're not going to get the attention that like I said, like Eddie Van Halen's going to get. But I think musicians and I'm going to say it, even podcasters and people that are more knowledgeable in music are ones who may champion those artists that are like, no, you really don't understand what you weren't hearing. And I know people bring Ringo up as an example of that. That's one I haven't clicked with yet, but I can appreciate that when I'm dealing with Alex Van Halen or any of those other people that I've mentioned. But one thing that what really made me go, oh my God, yes, thank you. Somebody else that hears what I'm saying. And that person was Geddy Lee. In his book, he writes that how he basically said what I said. He stole it from me is basically what I'm saying. That Geddy Lifeson, oh my God, now they're
so worked up.
They had a baby together. Alex Lifeson doesn't get enough respect for his touch. And the simple, some of it's, yes, in your face, just guitar playing. Some of it's just subtle and beautiful. And I was so appreciative when that I was reading it. I have it written down somewhere upstairs. As I was reading the book, I stopped reading it when I got to that part. I wrote the chapter down on the page. I'm like, I got to remember this because I want to, when that post comes up next year on Facebook, I'm going to say, you sons of bitches that either you didn't listen to me or you didn't understand what I was saying. Geddy Lee himself is saying the exact same thing that I said. Yeah. So anyhow, back to Alex Van Halen. You were talking about...
No. I'll do a quick rush for you. Do you think that like bands that, let's say a band is actually brave enough, forget about Van Halen, brave enough to cover a Rush song in their set. If they got 2 guitar players in that band, they're probably barely touching what Alex is capable of. And yeah, he's fucking great. By the way, did you see that South Park concert? The one that's on, where they went to Red Rocks and they did like a huge show.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, well, I won't spoil it then, but you know the Getty and Alex are there, right?
Yes. I remember seeing, like, maybe I watched a video of just them.
Yeah, like the way that the show is structured and everything, it's like it's a long show, but it's fucking great. Especially, I mean, you do kind of have to be a South Park, at least decent enough South Park fan to enjoy the show. But like the absolute gall that they had, Getty and Alex come out, and because of what this is, and it's not like the Foo Fighters concert was not the first time they stepped on stage together and played these songs. It was at this fucking South Park show. And damned if I'm like, am I really watching a South Park concert and I'm actually getting emotional? Like, that happens during the show. I dare you to watch that and not get a little, little tore up. But man, yeah, go watch it.
Yeah, a little choked up.
Yeah. All right. It's on Paramount, by the way. Okay. Alex Van Halen, into Van Halen. So you covered all that. 84 is gold. Like,
yes,
I'm rereading Greg Grinoff's Van Halen Rising book, and it's just,
oh, nice.
Any good book makes you want to go, man, I wish I was there. Like, especially books like this, obviously, like, man, wouldn't that have been amazing to just follow them through the Pasadena party circuit and LA party circuit and all that? It's like, man.
Yeah, it's nice living vicariously through his book, through those people that were there.
Oh, dude, it's so well done, the layers. Anyway, so equally, like, honestly, like, man, I'll never forget. My dad, I think, came in. He must have read it in the paper, heard it on the radio. It was like, hey, Van Halen broke up. And I was like, gutted. I was like, this is my band. I got every 45 from 1984. I listened to them all the time. Like, what am I going to do? I had no concept. Like, I just heard they broke up. And I just bought Roth's Crazy from the Heat. I didn't have any money. I was just given the Crazy from the Heat EP. And I guess I didn't know what was really going to happen. So it was just like, all right, so that whole thing. I do love both things, but if push comes to shove in any era or even after the breakup, I'm a guy, clearly. So I don't know how many times I listened to Crazy from the Heat. That is I need 10 minutes to reset my entire life and my entire brain structure record, because it's only 10 minutes long. That's the record I put on, and it writes me every time. I've literally been like out of state on vacation, and the traffic's getting to you. Put on Crazy from the Heat. All right. And you do mind fuck yourself into thinking that this is a reset when everything's still chaos, but it actually does work. There's some truth in there. But yeah, I still love that record, and I would have felt bad if I didn't have something that was Van Halen / Dave oriented. But what I'm doing with this list, and the first one was the anomaly of this list, but what I'm doing with everything on here basically is kind of like dual referencing. So by this particular pick, I am also bringing up my entire lifelong Van Halen fandom, but also another big fandom of mine, which is much like Van Halen, one of the great American bands of all time, if not maybe the best. Little misunderstood still to this day, and it's one of those bands, like, if you're a hardcore fan of a band, you defend them into the fucking fire with the haters and all this other stuff. And this particular band I'm talking about is the Beach Boys. Usually if the Beach Boys get brought up by people talking about music that they're into or music they grew up with, it's very early on. To this day, I am still a big fan of listening to Beach Boys music. And weirdly enough, the colder weather, the better. I think that's just that opposite effect where you want to feel like somewhere else. And that was probably the early appeal of them, I think. They probably did really well in the winter states, like a Minnesota. I was raised on the hits, much like almost everybody else my age whose parents grew up in the 60s. So hits all day. And it was one of those things, I never stopped liking them, but I never bought anything of theirs as a fan, as a music buyer. And yeah, there's that thing where it's like, oh, they're real square and everything. And they are. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Mike Love is an embarrassment, by the way. Like everything he did to that band from the 80s on and to this day, like he's probably playing a few hours away from me right now at some pig racer casino and just bastardizing the name until they put the final nail in his coffin at some point. Fuck that guy. But like I ran into the song Heroes and Villains like around the dawn of the 2000s, and I was like, man, I never heard it before. And I was like mad at my parents. Like, how had they never played this fucking song for me? So I got into their weird, like, quote unquote, like dark, drugged out era, 67 through 72 type stuff. So I brought all that up to say Beach Boys are misunderstood. Yes, their hits are cool and great and timeless and everything, but that 67 through 72 period is great. And anybody who's listening, who's any kind of music fan, should dive in on that era entirely. Even the live albums from that era, you got to check out. That's how good they are at that point. And that's post Pet Sounds before the big 70s come back. It's a great era. That all being said, California Girls by David Lee Roth. It covers everything I just said. So that's kind of my Americana, slot here on the show. Is Van Halen and the Beach Boys is America personified, defined, and all the way down to the video that Dave did, which apparently he directed. And he likes to talk about that.
Dave loves him some Dave.
Oh, doesn't he? And we love him for it. So he did a whole podcast on just directing California Girls video. You should definitely check it out. He's got a commentary watching the video, and he's also got like kind of a here's how I did it, and here's how I don't know anything, but I wound up with something good here. So it's neat to actually hear him talk about it. Anyway, that all being said, I wanted to include Dave. I wanted to include Beach Boys. So here you go. David Lee Roth with California Girls.
I remember that video being blasted constantly. For one, obviously it's David Lee Roth and he's doing a good song, and there's a lot of beautiful women in it.
Dude, and you were more appropriate age than I was when that came out. So this has to be maybe a little bit different for you.
Oh yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
But a nerdy music fact, by the way, like if you ever wondered, like how Dave got those Beach Boy harmonies so well in the song, because people don't talk about that, much like they don't talk about how great Alex Van Halen is. But like, how did he replicate those Beach Boy harmonies? Did he just triple layer his vocals? Do you think that's what he did? Like, no, he went out and got Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys and Christopher Cross, and they did a 3-part harmony in that take in the studio there that weekend. They're a little fun, geeky music fact. I throw those in on my show whenever I play songs that have something to kind of throw those little fun facts out there. I like that kind of shit. I'm very trivial.
Yeah, I always appreciate it myself. Little nuggets of learning.
Yeah. And apparently the entire band on Crazy from the Heat is just the David Letterman World's Most Dangerous Band, minus Paul Schaefer. I didn't realize that until like years later. But so that means the guy playing bass on it also played bass on Ace Frehley's 78 solo record. It's a whole thing.
Anton Fig, was he involved?
I don't think Anton's on there. I think it's mostly like, yeah, he's not on that record. It's mostly like percussion. There's not a lot of drum set on that record. That's the other thing about it. But I think it's most of the other guys and like the horns and stuff like that. So Edgar Winter and Dan Hartman had a hand in that record too. So some definitely some mechanics that don't get talked about in the overall grand scheme of musical history.
Okay, actually I got a couple of follow-up questions. One,
okay,
hit me with your thoughts on A Different Kind of Truth.
Thank you for asking. And it's almost like I asked you to ask me in advance on this one. I fucking love Different Kind of Truth, and I'll tell you why. And then I have a rant that will probably not equate your Alex Lifeson one, but I will definitely try because I get worked up about this. It should have been 12 songs. Tattoo is a bad song. Yes. I don't like Tattoo. I know some people that actually like it now. Maybe it's like a 10 years removed thing, but
it grew on me.
I don't know anybody that, wow. Okay. Cool. I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard. People do act like, well, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. I wish it wasn't on the record. I wouldn't mind it being like maybe a standalone single at some point in their career. But to me, the way that record is, it should not be on the record. It definitely should not have been the launch single.
I agree.
To me, that's like the absolute greatest mistake. I could almost reference any other album. I'm actually fascinated by like the process of like the old days of the music industry. Like, okay, what's the launch single? What's the second single? Well, you know, there's a science to it. God damn it. Tattoo should not have been track 1 on the album, nor should it have been the lead single. And here's the other thing. People talk about this record, and they still talk about to this day, ever since the album came out. What's the main gripe? And we're not texting or anything. What's the main gripe that quote unquote fans have on this record?
I'm going to say that Michael Anthony's not on it.
Ooh, that's good. That's actually number 1. A close second is the fact that they are using old ideas.
Oh, see, now that's another argument that I think is stupid. It's the same people using, it's their music. These are ideas that they decided, you know what, let's go back to the vaults. And actually, because Valerie Bertinelli herself said, if it wasn't for Wolfgang and him going through in the vaults and then like, there's material here, we could be doing this.
Yeah.
We may not have got that last album.
Exactly. And I will always, if I ever met Wolf, I'd shake his hand for this, because I guarantee you none of that. The reunion wouldn't have happened. Those tours wouldn't have happened. This album wouldn't have happened if not for him. I give him all the credit. Apparently made all the set lists too. Good for him, man. He was probably the only one that was really gung-ho about like getting the troops lined up and everything, and
fresh blood.
All the current dramas. Yeah, exactly. And he was fucking 15 when he got drafted into this band. What the hell? I mean, this is absurd. Like, it is nepotism at its most garish, but at the same time, I will say that he earned a lot of it, at least on the front end here. But going back to the album itself, and good for him for recognizing like, hey, you know, it's fair game if you've never actually recorded it and put it on a real album that everybody bought. So I've never understood why, and this is where I really get fucking mad about the too much information era. And if everybody, all these motherfuckers know, like, yeah, some people would know because they've heard the Zero demo, as we call it out there, the Gene Simmons demo, the one that they recorded to try to get a deal. And some of those ideas are on there. Songs like House of Pain are on there. It's a neat listen. It's great for hardcore fans. So some of those songs are on that demo, but also they took those songs, they rewrote most of the lyrics, they restructured a lot of stuff about it. So I love the fact, and there's two instances in the Van Halen fandom where people like really just trash something for no reason. This is number one. This album is great. I think it is a great follow-up to 1984, and especially what I do. I just go to track 2 right off the bat, my CD. And unfortunately, I missed out on the vinyl. If anybody has a vinyl out there, please message me, and please cut me a deal, because it's very fucking expensive, and I hate that. So, and it doesn't look like it's going to come out anytime soon either. And the drama behind that. But anyway, I skipped track 2 on the CD. Dude, like the production, like just you hear that 1984 studio, or the 5150 studio, excuse me, the production on that, even though they're not even using Don Landy anymore, you could tell that all the music was recorded at that house still. You can feel it. You can hear it. And there's so much classic sounding VH on there. Did people not go deep on the record? Did they give up after like the first 3 or 4 songs? Because did they not hear As Is? Did they not hear Beats Working? I mean, these things are monsters. These are great fucking songs. And we have this great thing that was given to us, basically, something we never thought we'd get. And I don't love it just on that principle. I think it is a great rock and roll album. It's hard as hell at certain spots, and even time they're referencing some of their older songs, I think they can kind of get away with it at this point. But once again, they're using old songs and old ideas. Dude, everybody loved Tattoo You by the Stones when it came out. And then like years later, when all these books came out and the internet comes out, and then they find out, oh my God, they're using songs that they demoed from 3-4 years ago, sometimes even more. Oh my God, you know what? This record sucks now. I don't like this record. And that's literally what people say. Like, yeah, it's a good record, but it's got old shit on it. I'm like, actually, no, it doesn't. People heard these songs for the first time when that album came out. Everybody loved Diver Down when it came out. I was only like 3 years old when that album came out. Gene, everybody loved Diver Down when it came out, correct?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. I mean, it sold a lot of records. And
well, yeah.
I at the time when I was a kid, I didn't know anybody that ever was like, oh man, just don't buy Diver Down and you'll be fine. Everybody was like, no, this is great, And then years down the road, all of a sudden, Eddie Van Halen's given a ton of interviews going, I kind of hate that record because it's half covers and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh yeah, no, I hate that record too. I mean, what a bunch of fucking sheep, man. Like, what's your opinion on it? So yeah, I keep going back to those 2 examples in the fandom. Is like, no, these records rule, and you really don't know how to have fun. And also, this might not be your favorite band anymore.
There are some artists I wish would go back to their catalog, or go back to the cutting room floor with some of their riffs and regurgitate or revive them or bring them back to life, because maybe they captured that energy of the time and bring it forward. Metallica, I would love if they went to back to the Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning era and scrapped up some of those old riffs and then created new songs with that stuff. It'd like, yeah, come on, man, bring me that energy again.
Yeah, and God forbid, maybe, refine some of these old ideas that might have Mustaine's songwriting credit on there if they ever put it out, and still be okay with it. Like, that could, imagine if that would happen. Like, yeah, let's workshop some of this stuff. We'll share some ideas. You can have a song, we'll have a song. Like, I think that could only help at this point. I mean, not that they're in the gutter right now as far as creative, but
right.
I think it'd be a cool boost. Something. Give us something. Like, we suffer through all this tribal bullshit. Like, help us out here, man. Same way with Van Halen and his Metallica versus Megadeth. By the way, the other thing, my last thing on Different Kind of Truth, that song on there, Blood and Fire, great song, right?
Yes.
That was supposed to be on 1984. That was a song that they demoed. I think it was called Ripley. I just found this out a few weeks ago, and they grabbed it again and worked on it for this album. It's like, yeah, if that had been on the album, it would have sounded really good. Like, if that song was on 1984, people would be like, oh yeah, that song's great, man. I always used to put the windows down and drive real fast to that one. Every one of those songs resembles that remark. I don't understand its failure, the fact that it didn't sell millions and it didn't lead to a fucking stadium tour. I will kind of forever be mad about that. I really need to stop talking about this.
So part 2 of my question regarding the song that we just heard with California Girls, David Lee Roth, your fandom, let's say into the 90s before the reunion, were you all in, or were you kind of, hey, the 80s stuff was cool, the David Lee Roth band with Vi was cool. And then where did you go from there? Or were you out after California Girls or after Crazy from the Heat?
No. Oh, no. I'll do it as quick as I can. I remained a fan. I'm kind of, what do they call it? Ride or dies. I'm a ride or die with Dave. Like the entire career, the entire solo career, even some of the stuff that may not be quote as good. And I don't like blindly defend it or anything, but I find stuff that I do like about every record for sure. When it comes to the split in the road, much like probably a lot of people that are almost strictly Dave guys, I can be like, no, I actually do like 5150. I still am people talk about how like, don't go back and fix things. Man, wouldn't you love an acoustic drum mix of 5150 with Alex just going to town on that without the electronic drums? Like, yeah, you can have some electronic drums. There's electronic drums in 1984, but it's so over the top with the electronic drums in 5150, and it's a thin mix. Imagine a bassy, really powerful drum version of 5150. That would be phenomenal. But I liked a good amount of the Hagar stuff. I really like Balance. That's a heavy ass record, and I do like it a lot. Too many ballads like Aerosmith, but there's some great rockers on there. And Oh Yeah 1-2 is okay. I didn't like Fuck It All. Really, like, I thought that was kind of a lame record. It sounds great. Like if they gave out Grammys and Hall of Fame inductions for production, that record would win. It sounds amazing, but there's nothing there for me on it hardly. But with Dave, Eat 'Em and Smile, of course, is great. I mean, it's a perfect 30 minutes, really is. It sums him up in one album, really. The thing about it, even if some of the records people don't like about him or they never gave a shot, man, just the lyrics, his ability to turn a phrase. I mean, he never stopped being good at that on these records. So some of those things that people miss, like Little Ain't Enough, I feel like most people didn't hear that. But even something like Your Filthy Little Mouth that I've constantly defended, and that record's not even successful enough or on the radar enough to make it on any bad lists. Although I think that people heard it. Some people might not like it at all. I really like it. It's probably his most honest record he's maybe ever put out in his career, because that is a straight up solo album. It's got some of his best, like, as he calls barroom Buddhism philosophy lyrics on there. Like, it's a wild record, and it's genre galore. There's every possible genre that he would want to tackle is on that one record. Whereas he's at that point, he's like, you know what? I don't feel the need to appeal to the hard rock and heavy metal community anymore. He always had a toe in it, but he was obviously the dance and pop guy and R&B guy. And there's R&B on this record. There's dance on this record. There's some hard rock songs on there, yeah, but not a lot. There's a reggae song on there, and there's a country song on there. It's wild. There's a song on there that kind of sounds like Steely Dan. It's weird, but yeah, I like Your Filthy Little Mouth. And yeah, DLR Band, the one with John 5, that was kind of his big break right there. That's a cool record. A lot of people say that's kind of it's like a lost Van Halen record, because it's very much like, it feels like that's the stuff that he probably would have brought into the band if they had done that reunion record when they were supposed to. And I think that record is a massive reaction to that. It's always that thing, like whatever team you're on, even though I do kind of hate tribalism, but I'm sure it was a little like, well, you put out that one with Sharon, I got this one right here. Kind of like when, like Megadeth puts out a better record than Metallica. As a Megadeth guy, I kind of go, yeah. So that was a fun moment. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of stuff. That's the thing that I don't dig. Like, there's not a lot of stuff for me. He doesn't have a huge catalog. Van Halen doesn't have a huge catalog, to be fair. So I've been like just leaning on his podcast for the last decade and change, because he'll throw out some unreleased stuff. He's got tons of covers in the vault. He just puts them on a show. So if you want to hear other songs by Dave, they're all on there. It's not just the ones you've been hearing the last few years or the re-recordings of the old songs. He's got tons of covers and some weird stuff out there. Dave's a fun guy to get into. Hundreds of hours on that podcast, by the way. Most people haven't heard it until just recently, because he's finally talking shit about Sammy and Wolf. So now people are listening to the show.
Yes.
But I've been listening for 10, 12 goddamn years on this show. It's great.
Well, yeah, you're pretty still pretty young when this song's out, when you're discovering when you have this heartbreak, I should say, of Van Halen's broken up and David Lee Roth's going his own direction.
Yes.
Now, okay, so regarding that, okay, I hate to keep going on with Van Halen here, but Van Halen obviously continues on. What was your initial reaction when you found that out, or at least when you heard the album?
You know, I liked it actually. I'd be lying if I said I didn't like it, because I did. I had just gotten into Hagar because I Can't Drive 55 was popping off. I never heard anything by him before that. And so I think that was really kind of his introduction to 80s kids and MTV kids that were maybe a little younger. Definitely didn't hear the first Montrose album, and damn, man, I'm kind of mad at everybody that never told me, like, man, you really need to listen to that first Montrose record because it's fucking great.
Good stuff on her.
Yeah, and I would have had to have been a certain age to really probably have heard at the time, like his early 80s hits, like the Standing Hampton stuff and heavy metal, and even his Fast Time song, which is great. So 55 was a big song for me. I had the 45, still have it with the picture sleeve and everything. Yeah, when I found out he was going to be the singer, I was like, well, I felt like I was saying, well, that could have been worse. I like Sammy, so let's see how it is. And I definitely first heard Love Walks In on the radio. I think that was the first thing I heard.
Oh, really?
Which is not, yeah, which isn't a hard rockin' tune. And I think definitely for sure, like close after that, I heard Why Can't This Be Love, which isn't that heavy either. But at the time, man, like 86, like I'm fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. It was also kind of that thing where I was like, well, if you want to hear traditional Van Halen stuff, then listen to Eat 'Em and Smile. I like this other stuff too. So I didn't feel the need to like get into versus mode. But once again, when push came to shove, I was a Dave guy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I remember when that came out, and I guess I had just come to terms with, well, Dave's doing his thing, and all of a sudden there's this new Van Halen. Yeah, I didn't choose a side. I was just like, well, these are two different things, and now we're moving forward with life.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the other thing. They sold it really, everybody sold their thing really well when both of those projects came out. Dave stayed the course as far as like, we're having fun video still. And even Van Halen knew that. That's why they didn't make a fucking video for that record. They have no official videos for that album. People still don't realize that, because we had videos on the channel, but they jacked them all from that concert, and then they did the Blue Angels video for Dreams. But they didn't make a video for 5150 because they knew better. Like, well, we can't fucking top what we did. Like, that's the one thing they definitely lost. But that being said, if you go watch that New Haven concert, the Live Without a Net, like they're otherworldly on that. They're badass. Like that. It's not the first show of Sammy, but it's one of the first, and they're just killing it, man. Like they basically have to play the whole new record, and they play a couple of Sammy songs. They play Panama for sure. I know that. How could you not play Panama? Bucko's right. That's the best Van Halen song. But yeah, like I love that. They never didn't play that. So it's like, that's just proof positive right there. But yeah, if anybody's never seen that Live Without a Net show, go watch that thing. They are so, there's a lot of good close-ups of Eddie playing too. So if you want to get that, like, what's he doing? Like, there's a lot of that on there. They made a point. The cameraman's like all up in his business. It's real fun to watch. And
nice.
Sammy proves that he's a good frontman on that show. I've never seen him make tracks more than like that. He was definitely out to prove a point, and he was never that good ever again or before. In my opinion, I'm fine with Sammy. I'll still go see him. I'm probably going to go to that show. That's definitely my fandom. I'm going to go to that tour just to hear a few extra Van Halen songs live. Why not? Right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Hey.
With Satriani trying to emulate Eddie as best he can.
Yeah, as best he can, and it's fine.
He knows it's a battle. He's very public about that, and I appreciate that, because that's one thing people think. It's like, well, Eddie did that, so I should just be able to copy Eddie. Or another good example is Malcolm Young. Okay, can you get your wrist to do what he's doing? Yes, you can. You could probably get a Muzak version of what he's doing, but can you do what he's doing? And if you can, then fabulous. But guess what? There's probably a small section of guitar players that can do that. And that's what Joe Satriani is battling right now, is getting that touch, getting that soul, the stuff that's the hardest to emulate. Yes, he's an accomplished guitar player. He knows more notes than probably were ever invented, but the intangibles that you cannot get just by picking up that guitar and knowing the notes. And I appreciate the fact that he's very public about that. And that makes me respect him even more so by just putting that out there saying, man, this is tough. And this is why. Same thing that Zach's got to deal with when he's doing Pantera stuff, when he's doing Dimebag, is that there's something in those fingers, there's something in that wrist, and there's something in that mind that you got to find that triangle, and you got to fit within that if you want to encapsulate what that person did in that, in your homage to what you're doing for them now.
Yeah. I almost feel like it is genetic, because to me, the only one that ever came close was Dweezil Zappa with his dad and stuff. That dude, at one point, he just was like, he disappeared off the face of the earth and was like, he just went to the woodshed. It was like, how can I do this? Like, how can I be this good? And this is an Eddie Van Halen kid. I mean, if you know the story of him, you know how much he's an Eddie guy and how Frank got Eddie to come over and give him lessons, and they helped him out with a solo album and all this other stuff. But at one point he was like, is it possible that I could ever become a mirror image of my dad? And the answer is no. But he's the only one that got as close as humanly possible. I've seen him live a handful of times. It's otherworldly. It's amazing next level stuff, and all the other adjectives I could pull out for you. But man, it's such an intangible. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter how basic or how involved it is. I don't think any art can be exactly replicated. And that goes for any art, even martial arts. Like what Dave would say, I will never be a mirror image of my sensei, but I can sure try.
Amen to that.
By the way, I love that you're a musician, because I have been a musician at one point in my day. But I love talking with a musician because you totally get it. I agree with like everything you said so far about like the actual art of it and the technique. And like I referenced Steve Clark earlier. I'm like, I feel so bad for fucking Def Leppard, man. They've never been able to get close to anything without him. Like really creatively, like, man, that guy was such an intangible. Losing that guy was so huge for them. And most people don't even realize that. It's like the heart and soul of that band died with him. It's so tragic. I don't mind him at all, but God, they didn't even get close after he died.
No.
Not even close. It's not the changing style either. Like even Phil was like, I couldn't play like that before I joined the band. He showed me how to play like that. Like, you hear those early riffs, man? He's like, it's all in there. He was the Malcolm Young of that band, and they could never replace him. Love Vivian. He's the man, but dude, no. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, he almost feels like just a plug-in player on that band.
Yeah, and he's probably a good hang. That's the other thing. Like, I never understood why Yannick was still in Iron Maiden after a while, but you go watch Flight 666, you're like, I totally get why he's in that band. He's a great hang. He's probably just super fun to be around, and they just didn't want to fire him. He was probably too fucking nice. Like, and even the roadies were like shitting on him, like, and kind of throwing shade at him a little bit. It's like, he never plays the same gig twice. Like, yeah, he doesn't need to be there. There's fans that like kick him out. They should just be with the same five. It's like, no, let him be in there if they want him in there. If they're going to have fun, they're going to tour more.
Absolutely, yeah. Less of a chore.
Yeah. Anyway.
Moving us forward here. So you're obviously still pretty young. Have you done any major moves in your life at this point as we're getting towards your third song?
Oh, yeah. Actually, 85 was such a big year for me. And I mean that, even though I was like just about to be 6 years old. We moved from Baton Rouge, Louisiana to Abilene, Texas. So Van Halen breaks up and I have to move house. So I say goodbye to any friends I had to leave my friend Sean that got me into everything. Once again, like the fact that he got me on Prince, I will always love that man for that. Man, that's a huge. The only reason I'm not bringing up Prince on this show, even though I kind of am now, but the only reason he's not on my song list is because, number one, choose a song, I dare you. But also, like, that could be a whole other thing. Anyway. But yeah, having to make all new friends. At least I got to be at a private school now. I'm going to regular school. Pre-mass shooting, so it's all good. Yeah, Abilene, Texas. It's, if you've never heard of it, I totally get it. It's I currently live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's about 3 hours from where I live, and the only reason anybody would know about that town. It's decently sized, but it's got 3 colleges there. But Texas going to Texas, it's all religious-based colleges.
Oh, really?
Apparently people go there. I've known people that have graduated from those places. But yeah, so honestly, being of elementary school years, spent the grade 1 through 5 in Abilene. Not a bad place to grow up. And I'll talk more about it as we go through this list here. And and around that, California Girls into this next song is really the Abilene era. So next 2 songs, actually, and let's be honest.
What about, musically, are you diving into anything as far as attempting to emulate people that you're enjoying, singing wise or picking up an instrument? Yeah,
I started taking guitar lessons almost right after we moved out there, although I had to take piano lessons. My mom's old school in the sense I had to learn how to play piano before I could play guitar. That was the bargaining chip. I don't know if she was like thinking it would make me more intelligent or something. I don't know. Scholastic. But I'm glad I took piano. I can still play a little bit, but man, I'll tell you, anybody out there, I mean, any instruments like this, it's not like riding a bike. If you've never played an instrument, it is not like fucking riding a bicycle. You need to play all the time. Look no further, once again, than an Eddie Van Halen. But yeah, I used to be able to, I was playing recitals in front of hundreds of people, playing like difficult Russian dances, like those kind of sonatinas and Russian things and staccatos and all these crazy minuets and everything. I was playing all that stuff. I had it memorized at one point. I stopped playing piano probably around the time we moved out of there. I think we couldn't find a good piano teacher out here, at least. But at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't want to play piano anymore. But I kind of wish I kept playing because, man, I don't want to say I was a child prodigy. I would never say that. But I was pretty damn good. And at this point, I'm about to be 45. I was better at 5 easily as a musician than I am now currently, which is very sad, which is anybody out there, if you're actually really, really young and listening to this and you want to play an instrument, keep playing it. Don't stop playing it. But I really wanted to play guitar because I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. I wanted to be Steve Vai. Once again, after about age 11 or 12, I realized I did not want to be Eddie Van Halen or Steve Vai. If I ever got to meet Steve Vai, I would really throw him off because I would be like, dude, I fucking love Passion and Warfare. It also de-influenced me to be a lead player because if you listen to a record like that, and I'm like, I could never, ever touch that. So that album actually put me on more Malcolm Young type stuff. You're like, I want to be a riffmeister. Actually, I want to be like Malcolm or Tony Iommi or something like that. I want to write some riffs that last 1,000 years, and not that Steve's music won't last, but it's a different kind of thing. And I think more people will know about you and like you if you write some really killer 3-minute songs. So that's where my brain was going at that point when I was trying to really actually be a guitar player. So I always knew that I would be probably the chief songwriter / rhythm guy / dictator of the band. But I never got to that point. But that was the goal.
So how about sports? I know that a lot of people, when they come on the show, that's some people walk in that world and some people don't. Where was that for you? Either playing or fandom wise?
Minimal, but decently noteworthy as a player. Little League, much like a lot of kids. I did Little League, first grade, first place, won the Little League, or won our local, Little League World Series or whatever it was. I still remember this. People think I am lying or exaggerating about this. Our finals was 55-5.
Holy buckets.
We won that game 55-5, probably sending the bookies into a tizzy, which might be a first for the show using the word tizzy, but
I think it's it. I'll write that on the chalkboard.
There was nothing going. Yeah, right. There was nothing going on in this town. Once again, I mean, it wasn't super deserty and rural, but at the same time, on a Saturday, this is what we were doing. This is what every adulting kid that was involved in this was doing. I don't know why they didn't call the game. I know for a fact it was 55-5. How cruel is that?
Yeah, that's tough.
I'm playing outfield. I saw no action.
Oh God.
Yeah, I still remember that. Okay, so first grade's first place, second grade second place, Third grade, you can kind of see where this is going. Third place. Then I quit because I saw the trend. I noticed trends early on in life. So that was
you should have left on a high note. First grade, and then
I know.
Thank you very much. I'm out of here.
Totally. It should have been, man.
I've been to the peak. I've seen the summit. I'm on my way up.
For sure. I still got the little mini trophy somewhere in this house.
Oh, nice.
And I still have the team photo somewhere, but I don't know where it is. I don't have any of the other team photos or any other trophies to be had. Other than that, I liked playing pickup basketball, but I never played on a team. I played basketball for a while because we had a goal at the house, and I was actually really good. I could beat all of my friends, and I was really good at trick shots, and I'm a good hook shot player. So if you ever need a good hook shot guy, I'm your man. I can still do it.
I'll write that down too.
But as a watcher, I like basketball and hockey. These days, my hockey fandom, I still definitely need to follow the Dallas Stars just on principle because I like trolling Baco a lot with it because he's a Minnesota North Stars guy.
You can go fuck yourself.
And I'm like, you have your own team, embrace it. So yeah, stay with your Wild, stay in your lane. Apparently our Stanley Cup is not valid because we used to be in another town. I still don't understand that logic, but hey, go Stars. Regarding
the move then, did you have any friends that kind of filled that void from your previous location? Because you're talking about, and that's another thing too, is like you found that kindred spirit and that guy's turning you on to Prince and now you move away. Is there anybody that fills that void for you?
Yeah, I had a friend, a really, really good best friend that lived diagonally across the street from my house. Isn't it funny that we make friends with people on our street? But the great thing about this guy is he had good taste in music. Like me, he was a younger sibling with an older brother and an older sister, and I had one older sister. But also, and this isn't any slight on you, Richard, but much like my grandparents, you also had MTV. I did not. So that was definitely a big deal. Not for nothing. I could go over and watch MTV, and yeah, that was a big deal too. I definitely got more MTV time at all my grandparents' house, which is that really absurd thing that they talk about when they talk about the history of that channel, is that everybody's grandparents and relatives had that before they did, and they all wanted the channel, and the grandparents couldn't have given a shit about having it.
Yeah.
So. But that was the thing. The book's interesting. Read it. But yeah, we got into a lot of bands. That was 85, 86. Still great stuff coming out, obviously. And that was when they started to play the Heavy Metal Hour with Dee Snider hosting it. So it's oh, man, look at all this stuff. First time I heard bands like Wasp and Priest and stuff like that, Maiden. Because I was already a big Twisted Sister fan. Because that broke through on the pop charts. So my first favorite hard rock and metal bands, I didn't mention this before, were Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister. And always put respect on those names because they're great. They have more than one good album each. So especially Twisted Sister, their first 3 albums, fucking solid. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, they fell off after Stay Hungry. Everybody knows this. But those first 3 albums are metal classics. And everybody needs to recognize that. So yeah, I was already into those bands because they did cross through on the pop charts. And then I'm learning about all these other bands. I was like, wow, so VMTV. But even just on my own, still didn't have MTV. We wouldn't have it till 87. Something interesting happened despite all that other stuff going on. And I was still just all about music. I definitely was not an avid sports watcher. I just listened to my records, and basically I stayed in my room, but also I did outdoor stuff. I was a kid of the 80s. Of course I did outdoor stuff. But I always took my shoulder motor with me, took my radio with me pretty much everywhere. If I didn't have a Walkman at the time, I brought the radio, and I would put the radio on the handlebar of the bike because it wasn't large enough to outweigh the bike. So I could make that happen. I didn't have a basket. Basket. Dude. That's how we rolled,
Absolutely.
So I put the radio on the handlebar. I wish I'd have had the wherewithal to do the bungee cord thing, but I just did the handlebar thing. It's very low key, but yeah, I just always had the radio blasting with whatever tape I had. And I was a kid that I still bought vinyl records or owned them, but I would make the copy on the cassette, and that's what I would play on my radio. I never actually owned a lot of the cassettes officially. I would just make copies. So there's that. But something interesting happened around 87. Big year for me. Definitely my favorite year living out there, because we did finally get cable. So here comes MTV. And yeah, it's a boring story, child of the 80s. Like, oh my God, MTV put on such a pedestal. But man, I'll tell you, I got it in 87, and I definitely was like, historically, when people talk about that channel, it's like, oh, you're late to the party. I'm like, I mean, I was definitely late to the onset of like 24-hour videos, because even at that point, they're starting to get into variety programming and stuff like that. But there was a lot of cool things happening on MTV at that time, like Headbangers Ball was just starting. And as a kid in the suburbs who's getting turned on to all these metal bands and that was the other thing that was great. Like, our radio stations didn't play this fucking stuff. It's the only place we could get it, unless we had a friend that had an older brother that had a line on something. Think about this. I'm in suburban Texas, not even close to any kind of major city. So I would just get random stuff. Even when I would hang out with my cousin, like, he turned me on to like Lords of the New Church when I was 6. And then I heard Ice-T for the first time because of him. So I was just getting like, it didn't matter. But he was also a Van Halen guy. So like, I was like, he's cool no matter what. So I thought these other things were cool. And so, yeah, like anybody that had a friend that had an older brother, that usually helped get into something else that was not as obvious, because their older brothers are probably either in junior high or high school, and they're worried about being cool. So they're trying to be on the cusp of whatever else is happening. And we're listening to our shit that's on the radio all the time and all that. But 87 was cool, man, because finally got cable, finally got MTV. Not as important as Headbangers Ball, but I was absolutely enthralled with Yo MTV Raps as well. I can't not tell my story without telling that, because I do that thing where I try to sound all cool and brag about it now. It's like, I was the only kid on my block watching both shows, man. And I felt like I was, because I'm in Abilene, Texas, and I feel like I'm definitely the only kid watching Yo MTV Raps. I know this not to be true now, but I thought at the time, like, man, I'm the only one that knows about both of these things. It's like, I felt like people were either one or the other, and that's the way you're brought up. But that's when I found heavy metal. That's where I found thrash. But at the same time, there was some stuff that wasn't being played on MTV that I found. We finally got an AM radio station that somebody told me about that was playing just heavy metal. AM radio. And they're playing heavy metal. And they played all of it. They literally went all the way back to Steppenwolf because they said Heavy Metal Thunder. And then within the span of a few months, I heard Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Metallica. I heard all the big four for the very first time within 1987, just in a few months. And I just kept that station on all the time. I completely abandoned Top 40 at 6, 7 years old in favor of this all heavy metal AM radio station out of a basement of the Top 40 station that we lived by. And it was so eye-opening. And they had Metal Shop on every weekend. That's also important. That was my big floodgate year, 87. I'm learning about a ton of heavy metal music. I'm also getting the best absolute period for rap and hip hop. And I'm not going to get too much of a thing about rap and hip hop, but I will say, like, I hate modern hip hop. I hate modern rap because it's the only genre I'll really say, and I'll honestly say it about some other subgenres that I could talk about at some point, but we grew up on the good stuff. It was the best stuff. You haven't been able to touch it since then. So stop trying. Really, just stop, please, for the benefit of everybody. It was just better then. But yeah, I remember seeing Public Enemy and Ice-T and KRS-One and Stethasonic and Eric B. and Rakim. Ooh. Hearing and seeing all that for the very first time, and then a few hours later, I was seeing Anthrax and just I brain fart because I'm just like thinking about how cool all this was to get it all at the same time. But also, I still love pop metal too. That's the other thing. It's like most people when they get into thrash, I feel like maybe just for the sake of, I don't know, coolness or some other bullshit in their head, they abandon their roots, for lack of a better term, or they ban the stuff that they truly do like in their heart. But I didn't understand why I liked Poison. I really did. I legit liked Poison in 1986 and 1987. Everybody else did too. And I'm sick of people fronting about it. But yeah, I heard Die by the Sword on AM radio I was like, whoa, can you imagine hearing Die by the Sword at 7 years old and you never heard anything even close to that? And then I heard a song called Damage Incorporated. Oh my God. Like, I still remember the first time I heard it, I was actually recording off the radio. So I had that song now on tape. Oh man. Because I'd always record the lunch hour and then I'd like erase over it every day and I'd just listen to it over and over again. Because the lunch hour is great because it was all request. So all of us idiots were calling in with all of our shit and I'd always get my request on. It was great.
Nice.
But yeah, someone apparently called in with Damage Incorporated. Never heard before. I was like, oh my God. The first Metallica song I ever heard was Damage Incorporated.
Wow.
It's a good way to start, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But yeah, like I'm skip shotting here, but I still think about that station. KYJ, Key Rock, not Z Rock, but Key Rock. And I still have that tape. I could actually make a podcast of that tape if I wanted to. As illegal as that would be, I've thought about that over the years, even playing some of the spots on there and stuff like that, just to be like, no, this is real. It's the first time I heard 95% of the stuff on this tape. And it was crazy. So the other reason I love that tape and I never erased over it afterwards is because I got the first request of the day that day. I still was like, oh my God. And I had just heard this song a few days ago on that same station. And to me, the reason I even brought up the OMTV Raps and Ed Binger's Ball thing is because this song is the culmination of those two things. I had already heard about the Beastie Boys and I already even bought the record. I can't believe I got that one past the house. Like when you really think about the lyrics that are on that record, shoot, I didn't even try to get the Pentagram passed. I never owned Shout the Devil. That was my own copy. And I guess I got the Beastie Boys thing passed because they didn't list the names of the songs on the thing. It was just a plane crash. I don't even think I made my mom look at the back of it. I was like, no, it's a plane. It's fine. I don't know. I still don't know how I got that one past it, but I was huge on that record. I played Licensed Ill so much. I actually had friends of mine, their moms wound up coming over to my house to tell my mom that I couldn't hang out with them anymore.
Oh, jeez. You're the bad influence.
Apparently I was. I didn't do anything bad from any kind of like social standpoint or, we might have rolled a couple of houses, but who didn't, especially then. Yeah, just so I was not a bad influence, but just the music I played, I felt like the guys in front of the PMRC hearing. I was just like, this is not bad for your health. It's not going to turn you into a criminal or anything. And my mom got that talk a handful of times. I'm still blown away by that. But I guess, and just churchy LaFems, I suppose. But yeah, like I was huge on that Beastie Boys record. And then all of a sudden there's a band on the AM station that there's a song that sounds like the Beastie Boys. And then they tell me who it is. And I'm just now even finding out just a few years ago that the Beastie Boys were supposed to be on this song. Now we all know, right? But it's Anthrax's I'm the Man. That song changed me probably, definitely as much as any song on this list. But that song really changed me. I went through the Run DMC Aerosmith thing. I thought that was great. I'd already heard Run DMC before this. Once again, they were played decently on radio and MTV, so we already knew about them. So I love those kind of things because they're also well done. Let's just be honest about it. There are some other rap rock collaborations like in the 90s and 2000s, and they're all kind of lame because the song sucks. Like why is the Wu-Tang Sabbath thing lame? That should not be lame. But it is. I feel like I'm not being, out of line here. But these other things, they were really, truly great. And of course, the Bring the Noise moment a few years later was so great. And I even had to fight my friends on that one. I was like, no, this is great. It's a shame kind of what it created because I am definitely not a fan of most new metal. But carrying on the man and just laughing at the samples and everything. They even had a Metallica sample on that song I had just heard the other day. I'm like, wait, what? Because I analyzed this song to no end. But yeah, I'm the Man was huge for me. Still love it.
Yo, man, what's the matter with you?
I'll get it the next time. I mean,
Charlie, beat the beats you beat. The only thing hard is the smell of my feet. So listen up, cause you might get dick. Don't train the lizard or take a chair. Damn. Come on, man, yo. What's the beat? I'm on your case, I'm in your face. I kick you in your water back and fight. Step up, sucker, understand? Don't you know that? I'm the man. I'm so bad, I should be detention. I'm the man. Fresh new jams, everything we got equal. Well, we're just him. Got wasted for his life's escape. Like he's never on time, he's always
sleeping late.
They drink the drinks they drag. I put my money in the bag. They cut their crack, they offer drugs. We don't do drugs, you get off.
Meaning,
point that's the beat. I'm on your case, I'm in your face, kick you in your butt up back and wait. Step up, sucker, understand? Don't you know that? I'm the man, I'm bad. I'm so bad, I should be detention. I'm the man. For a heavy metal band raps a different way. We like to be different, not cliche. Well, they say rap and metal can never mix. Well, all of they can suck off.
Sexual organ located in the lower abdominal area.
No, man, it's dick. Daddy, the boxing fight. I think my nose. So I can do They wipe my butt with your
face.
toilet paper. Yo, watch the beat.
Yeah.
I'm on your case, I'm in your face. I kick you in your water back and fight. Step on, sucker, understand? Don't you know that? I'm the man. I'm bad. I'm so bad I should be detention. I'm the man. This rap is winding down. You see, we wear the crown. And back is #1. But we don't care. We just want to have
A festival.
fun, you stupid idiot.
I need more.
Joey the male, he male. We are the kings and all shall hail. We're like the diamond that is forever. And will remain the hardest ever.
You know, I'm so bad. It's a crime.
Head kick. Not.
I am almost positive that this was one of my early introductions to Anthrax was because of this and the EP.
Nice. Yeah. And I was seeing their moving stuff was making its way onto Headbangers Ball at that point. So I was seeing this, this other side of them in addition to like I'm the Man being like my favorite song at the time. So I was like, man, that's so cool. It's one of the coolest bands I've ever heard. And I still think that actually I'm still the biggest Anthrax fan. My favorite of the big four. I'll just throw it out there. Love them. And this is one of the reasons why.
All right. Well, you brought it up and it's been on the show before. Give me a ranking, let's say from 1990, big four in order from 4 to 1.
Anthrax, Megadeth. God, that's I can't put one of those. Can't put the other two guys over the other. God, for credibility, I want to say Slayer, right? But if I'm being honest, I've seen Metallica live more. God damn it. I hate this. There's no last place here. So yeah, I'll just be fucking honest. Okay. Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer. And I almost based that more off of just my overall enjoyability of the catalog of the records and how much I re-listened to them. So I'm going with that. And I love Slayer. Don't fucking kill me or anything. God. I know my friend Randy Brown, he has seen Slayer like 20 times, legit, something like that. 18 to 20 times.
That's where you're at now, correct? Anthrax.
Yeah, that's where I'm at now. It's been like that, I think, ever since.
So from the beginning, that would have been your list, and that carries on to today.
Yeah, and I was definitely So Far So Good So What, your record, was happening at that same time where I was really discovering all this stuff. And I love the Anarchy cover because they used to play it on Key Rock all the time. I still love it. And yes, I'm glad you like that record so much. I don't know why it's hard to find like really hardcore fans about that record. I mean, "In My Darkest Hour" is probably their best song, but man, yeah, like at least Megadeth only has like 4 lame records, and everything else kind of is great. So I have to give it up for them for just that catalog. And Anthrax has a pretty damn good catalog themselves. Slayer is probably the most consistent.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I just take them for granted a little bit. I think that's just one of the things. Like after they kind of did their first couple of records, off to the races, they never let you down. So yeah, that's that kind of bullshit thing where we take them for granted, I think, a lot.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer on the Slayer bandwagon. They were the fourth of the 4. If I was going to pull in from when Season of the Abyss came out, they would have been my number 4 spot once they actually earned me as a fan in a fashion. Because I think the whole satanic thing kind of turned me off. I'm not sure if that was it or what the situation was. I don't know. Maybe it was the asshole friends that really thought Slayer was the best. That maybe turned me off to that, because that's had an effect on me. I remember having a friend that Skid Row was one of those bands. I'm like, can't listen to Skid Row because of that guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. I was such a Skid Row kid. I'll talk more about that later.
Well, no, I dig them now.
No,
but
it's yeah. No, I understand, because like the kids that would probably kick my ass in school they were the guys wearing the Slayer shirts.
Yeah, but my fandom, the Big Four wise, would have evolved. That's why I asked where where you're at then and where you're at now, if there was any change to your ranking of the Big Four.
You know what? I'll amend it a little bit. Especially around 1990, Megadeth was tops, because I think maybe out of that entire Big Four, Rust in Peace is probably my favorite album out of any of all of them. That one was big for me. A huge record for me. That was my last gasp of trying to learn how to play all the notes on a record. It was just like, no, I can't do it. I mean, man, I could still to this day, I can go into any Guitar Center and I can play that breakdown part of Holy Wars that I love so much. Is there anything better than bono, nano, nana, bono, anna, anna, oh. Man, I can still play that.
Nice.
And I can still play the opening chords to Hangar 18. That is something I will brag about. Still haven't memorized, but yeah, Rust in Peace, huge for me. And like, Persistence of Time is okay, but man, Megadeth had it going on in 1990, and Season of the Abyss was fucking great. Like that, really, really, really good. I did have like a couple of the songs. I probably had half of Season of the Abyss on a tape somewhere. So yeah, that was a big one. 90. I mean, the fact that the fact that Metallica kind of went into hiding, and then all the rest of them are like, oh, hey, by the way, like that was kind of neat. Like I like that they really brought their A game, and I feel like it was always calculated. Like, well, Metallica's, they're off season right now, and we all got albums due. So yeah, I think they all made a conscious effort to like bring it at that time. So just a theory, but yeah, there you go.
Well, yeah, everybody was setting the bar high. And if you were in trying to compete, yeah, that there was a lot to be competitive about. There was some really kick-ass stuff that was being released at this point when you're getting into that thrash metal. Yeah,
and I was definitely getting into Testament at this time, and I remember I was staying over at a buddy's house, and he put on this tape. And this sounds like a movie moment. It sounds like I'm making it up. But he was like, "Man, these guys are from here. You got to hear this." And you know what I'm going to be talking about. Like, I heard the opening riff of Cowboys from Hell, and I was like, hell. I mean, just Cowboys from Hell. It sounds so simplistic, but when you're like 11 years old and there's a song called Cowboys from Hell, but then it's got the goods musically, like, oh my God, man. I still remember that night just hearing that song. I only had to hear the one song. I don't even know if he played anything else off the record. I really don't. I just remember that song. We had never heard about him. Like, we definitely weren't of an age where we would have seen him play in the bars or anything. We didn't know shit about him. Like, them coming out to the rest of the country on that major label album was the same as it was over here, honestly. I mean, obviously a little bit less so, but like getting to an 11 or 12-year-old suburbanite, like that's as much of an atomic bomb going off as when the Chronic crossed over into the suburbs, So
I didn't even think to ask you this. So you first heard I'm the Man. Have you heard any Anthrax previous to that?
I don't believe I ever did. I was trying to think about that even when I just put him on the list here, because I was like, oh, you might ask me about that. But I think that was probably legitimately the first thing I ever heard by him. So I guess at the time I was probably thinking this is what they do all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I had seen their it's like I'd seen their records in the store, because that's the other thing. I don't want to sound like I was all crazy or anything. But when I used to go to record stores and I would just look through the racks, and being from that era where metal's really kicking off, like if you're into album covers and you're just rolling through racks, like, oh man, Dio and Maiden, I mean, just like, I want to hear all of this. And I know Anthrax was in the mix there, but their album covers weren't as cool, except for that Spreading the Disease record at the time. And Fistful of Metal probably would have scared me if any of my stores actually carried it.
Yeah,
I still remember being fucking scared at Speak of the Devil and Bark at the Moon by Ozzy. Like, Ozzy gave me nightmares. But I was 4. That's only fair. I mean, like, seeing the Bark at the Moon video at 5 years old fucks you up, because he lost the chase. And you go to bed at night seeing yourself trip in the hallway of the boiler room, and then the monster gets you. Like, that fucked me up really bad. Anyway, sorry. Now I love it. I literally just bought like my 3rd copy of Bark at the Moon so I could get the poster with the fucking monster on it. Like, I did that this week.
Nice.
But back to your actual question. Yeah, and like right after that, on the ball, I had saw the Indians video, and the thing that actually stuck out to me, it sounds like a thing that people use in like historical articles now, but I remember going, these guys are wearing shorts. I still thought that was weird to see rock stars in shorts. It sounds so simple. Like, I don't remember anybody else wearing shorts that was even supposed to be remotely cool at the time. The only, I think the only band I ever saw wear shorts before this was the Fat Boys. So yeah, it was, they had cool looking guitars. I didn't know the Ninja Turtles were at the time, but I just knew they had crazy graphics on their guitars. And that when I watch those videos now, I'm like, man, those guys are even cooler than I thought they were, because they're wearing Fishbone shirts. It takes a lot of balls, like, to either not be wearing your shirt, which is the Joey Belladonna move. It's like, or you just wear, like, you know, something else for credibility. You know, they're going outside their lane, and that's the other thing it's the other reason why they're my number one Big Four band on principle. Is I'm not trying to put myself over as like, oh, I have a lot of variety in my taste or anything, but if you just stick with Anthrax fandom and you listen to what they listen to, you're going to have a fun record collection. You're going to be buying, you're going to be buying Rush albums, and you're going to be buying Kiss albums, but you're also going to be buying Fishbone and the Beastie Boys and Husker Du, and even get into some Celtic Frost. And it's like you're going to have a killer record collection if you just lean on Anthrax. These guys are great.
Agreed. Okay, well, now I got to ask this question then. I'm not asking to choose a side, but the John Bush years.
Yeah.
I know some people, after that first album, some of them are checked out immediately. And then some people are like, oh yeah, Sound of White Noise. And then after that, I was ready for a reunion because I could skip everything after that. Where were you at?
Really?
No, not me. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. I was like, whoa, I don't know.
No. I saw him with John. Yeah. I was still in with the band. I went in that new direction. It's like, you know, if they can't be the Joey band, Sound of White Noise, of course, helped because it was like, oh, new singer. Oh, and then all of a sudden you get the Sound of White Noise. And it was like, oh my God, that song is good. Wow. Okay. That song is good. And if you didn't like the 3rd song or the 4th song, you listen to the album again, and now you like those songs. You know, I was one of those people. Sure. I was in with John. I like him as a person. I like him as a front man. I like what he brought to the band, and I like the new direction the band was in. And if it needed Joey to go away for that to happen, then so be it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're back together now. Of course, as much as I'd like to see them to do stuff with John, but if John's going to do his own thing and do a solo tour and revitalize the John Bush era stuff because Joey's not touching it. Occasionally they'll do only.
Yeah.
I
I never want to hear him sing that. I'm sorry.
I thought I did, and then I heard it the last time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I know, man. That is a true double-edged sword of my Anthrax fandom. You want these songs to be recognized. You want these albums to be recognized because 3 out of 4 are excellent, and I think we know which one isn't. But man, yeah, and at the time, my thing about Joey coming back is I just was like, I just need them to put a record out. Finally, I need this record that I've been hearing about for 100 years to come out, which wound up being Worship Music.
Yeah,
they went through 3 unique singers and 4 different lineups to get that record done. And there's that supposed session with Corey Taylor that I think there's some tape of that still, but some people would probably love to hear that.
Yeah.
But at one point, like, Corey might have been the singer. I actually saw one of the very, very few Dan Nelson shows, by the way. So I saw him play at Rocklahoma in 2009, and it was fine. He was more like a Phil Anselmo type, for those of you who've never seen that footage. I think that probably gets the point across pretty well. It's like Phil Anselmo with less charisma. And he kind of sang that way too. But also, if you think about it, they're such big Pantera fans. I think they thought at the time, okay, this is a total fit that we're looking for. But with that guy, if he'd have stayed in the band, the songs definitely would have gone out the window with having any kind of melody or anything. Like John and Joey have their own different unique thing. They both have really good songs on the records that they're on. I'm a weird Anthrax fan, not to sound too contrarian, but I think that Spreading the Disease is better than Among the Living. Among the Living gets all the love, and I don't dislike it because it gets love. I just think the songs are better on Spreading the Disease. Much like I like Sound of White Noise, but I think Volume 8 and We've Come For You All are better.
Really?
I just think those are better records. I like I like them top to bottom more. Sound of White Noise is great. It's a can't miss. I mean, even Mark Dodson producing that guy. Go look up just that guy's catalog. Once again, you're going to get into some great records if you just follow the producer on that one. Yeah, I love them both. To answer your question, finally, I equally like Joey and John. I think that at least as crazy as the history is of this band, as far as like mismanagement and all these other bumps in the road, that's why they're always the bottom of the big 4 as far as popularity and sales go. But when Joey came back to the band, for me, it was a finally moment. When I heard Worship Music, I lost my mind. It's so good. This album is so troubled. How is it that good? That album doesn't deserve to be that good. But to me, it might be their best album. And capping it off and finishing with the New Noise cover, oh my God. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. That's another song that got me on a cool trajectory. So, yeah, for me, I think Worship Music is probably their best album.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boom.
All right, so where do we go from there then?
All right, so yeah, I went on a weird tangent where I literally jumped from Abilene, Texas, over to the mid-cities here in Dallas, with the Cowboys and the thrash and all that stuff. Once we moved out here, basically to where I am currently, even though I've lived in a few different places, but I won't bore you with those details. Within just the first few months, I just turned 11, and I had always liked and appreciated Kiss, but I'm a weird fan, and I came in, he was like, here's another guy on a fucking Kiss run. I could see it in your eyes. It's okay, though. I'll be gentle. But I got in 85 with Asylum, which is not a well-liked record, by the way. I don't know if you know this or not.
I've heard things.
Some people love it.
I listen to podcasts.
I think me and Sonny Pooney might be the only people that actually kind of will use the word love when it comes to Asylum. But I will love it because it got me in. And just having MTV, they were never a heavy rotation band on MTV. But the great thing about fandom is that they totally cooked the books for Kiss. The fans just dialed in on Dial MTV every day. And it didn't matter if this song was a hit or not. It was on MTV every day. So I got to see Kiss every day, even during crazy nights. All 3 of those singles were like top 10 videos for like months. And so that's where it kind of seeped in there for me. And my friend Richard across the street in Abilene, he liked Kiss a lot too. So it just kind of became a thing. We just listened to him. And I don't think this should be understated either. Kiss was the only band that came to CRS, like in Abilene, Texas. It is we'll say it's probably a third-rate market if they're making classifications for this. That's a place that more people played there during the 70s and stuff like that, because they do have a Coliseum. So, but it was like the hard-working, road dogs like Nugent and Kiss and stuff like that. They're the ones that would play Abilene. I think maybe Wasp was one of the only other bands that came to see us in the 80s. Unfortunately, I was too young to go. My first concert was there. It was Poison when I was 8. Safe enough, I suppose. But the town's so small. By the way, sidebar, when Poison came to town, it was such a big deal that it was on the news every night that week.
Oh, wow.
Like the local 6 o'clock news had Poison updates. It was in demand. They were
like we get with Beyonce and Taylor Swift now, you're saying?
Yeah. Like when you see that footage I got nostalgic for my Poison update, like hearing about Poison. Oh, they had lunch at the Japanese steakhouse and they caused a little bit of a ruckus. And somebody jumped off the balcony into the pool today. Like we were literally getting those updates on our actual real affiliates, like ABC, 6 o'clock news affiliate.
You guys had a Japanese steakhouse too?
Yeah, man, they're going wild. We had one of everything in this town. It's one of those towns. They got kind of one of everything.
Huh.
But yeah, they came. That was my first show. It was Poison with Brittany Fox opening. But once again, no one came to see us. Kiss came every year. Sadly, I did not see them in Abilene. Would have loved to, but they came to Abilene like every year because they were touring every year. The only time they didn't come to see us was Crazy Nights, which if they had, that probably would have been my first show. But once we moved out here to the DFW area, I won tickets to see Kiss off the radio, and I didn't have anybody to go with because I asked. I had a few friends that I had already made. We'd only been in town for a few months. And none of their parents would let them go to the show because it was like literally like day of. I won the tickets the day of the show.
Oh, wow.
It's just like one of those things, a newly divorced mom who's really trying her hardest. And I got to give it up for my mom on this one. If you heard my concert chronology on Rex Strikes 10, there's another plug. If you heard my concert chronology, I told this whole story already, but my mom took one for the team. I was that kid with the parent in the station wagon waiting outside for the show to be over. But in this instance, she actually went to the show, and this is one of those things that would never happen today. And people say that, but this would never happen today. It's a shed show. You know how the shed layout is. It's the covered, and then there's the lawn, right? So we were like in the back row of the seats, non-covered, and I couldn't see anything. Everybody stand up. I haven't hit puberty yet. I haven't had a growth spurt or anything. I can't see shit. So I'm kind of like, I can't see anything. And there's no screens for me to look at least where I am. And so I'm like, I want to go up closer. I'm not understanding the concept of assigned seating, even at this age. I don't know why my mom even said this, but she's like, okay, if you can find a seat, stay in the first seat, and I'll just walk down the row when I come to find you. In front of 12,000 hardcore drinking, dope smoking people wearing very little clothing, especially the girls, because it's a Kiss show. Even in 1990, that was a thing, trust me. And Faster Pussycat and Slaughter are opening up. So now you have even more scantily clad women. Let's just
Holy
say.
buckets, yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, I don't even know how she didn't pull me out of that show with Tammy Down Xanax that night. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, Ma, thanks, Ma. I really appreciate it.
She really took over the team.
We were new in town. She just got a job as a teacher assistant. She's a teacher by trade. She hadn't got a full assignment yet, but she was a TA. She ran into students that night that knew her. And I was like, Mom, I made your career out there. Like, yeah. She was the cool teacher for a minute, you know. Like,
she's the cool teacher.
Yeah, she sat in the back of that fucking shed and read a book, like a flashlight in a book, you know, like, and, you know, it's a lot of shit, but she's just reading one of her books, you know, like some James Clavell novel or something like that, or, you know, whatever, some Civil War shit. And I'm just having the time of my life. And my second concert, Pussycat was great too, by the way. But like when Kiss fucking comes out, dude, and no matter where people are in their Kiss fandom, if they're Kiss fans, the lore of the Hot in the Shade tour is something else. It was the peak of the non-makeup years. As far as from a creative / set list standpoint, and the fact that they went with a different kind of stage show was like, they were kind of retooling for the 90s. They didn't know what they were doing. Neither did anybody else. But this is like them finally bringing back old songs. And I was finally learning those old songs. Like I was just at that right moment where it's like, with this set list, I pretty much knew every song. It's perfect timing. I even like the Hot in the Shade record. I was always borrowing a friend of mine's VHS copy of Kiss Meets a Phantom of the Park. So I'm like a 1977 fan trapped in 1990, basically.
Wow.
So I'm watching that. I am wearing out the cassette for Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. I've got a cassette of Hot in the Shade. I've got dupes of some other albums because, you know, tapes and records are a luxury. So I'm there. I'm at the show. Like I said, I pretty much know all the songs. Man, when the lights went out, and you could find decent, okay footage of this on YouTube. Like the lights go out, and the Sphinx is on stage, and his mouth opens out, and these lasers come out of the mouth, and Kiss walk out of the mouth, and Paul Stanley just walks out on stage. And I'm just thinking, my God, I'm about to get pulled out by my ear by my mom any second now, because Paul Stanley comes out and goes, let's just kick some motherfucking ass. What do you say? You know, and he's like just cursing up a storm. R-rated Paul Stanley. Even when they put those stuff on the DVDs now, they edit all that shit out. But Paul Stanley had a sailor mouth throughout that entire tour. So I'm loving it, but at the same time, I'm like, I am a dead man. Like I'm literally going to get pulled out by the ear at any second now. But man, they came out and Paul Stanley, let's get some motherfucking ass. And I was like, let's do it, man. And they busted into I Stole Your Love. And that's when I became a member of the Kiss Army. Like legitimately, they say you can't be in it until you go to a show. It's true. Like in a sense, like I heard that song especially, and then they go right in a deuce after that. I mean, perfect 1-2 for me. It's never been replicated. Even if the reunion tour was great. I loved it. And that was probably more magical, being honest. But there's nothing like that first show. And like I Stole Your Love is probably always going to be my favorite Kiss song for that reason. Like I Stole Your Love and Deuce, tied for one. But many years after that, got to go on the Kiss cruise. That's when I became Kiss Navy. Sounds cheesy, but we wear these badges of honor. So Kiss Army for 100 years, Kiss Navy over the last 12 years. So I got to go on Kiss Cruise too. And I'm there with Nola, who I haven't even proposed to her at this point. I don't know how many girlfriends and wives would do this. I think there has to be some sort of enjoyment in there, because I'm not the kind of person, I feel like I'm not the kind of person that you meet and you get into a relationship with. It's like, I can't do enough for you. I don't feel like I'm one of those people, but I do try to earn my stripes. The fact that like, it's like, yeah, let's go on the Kiss Cruise. She was a decent enough fan, you know. She wasn't like fucking nerdy and indoctrinated and like I am, or most fucking psychopaths are. But she likes the tunes, and it's a cool presentation. They've got a lot of stuff that, you know, I'm not trying to play some shitty dude card like, oh, the ladies can get into this, it's fine, you know. They got the songs, but it's true. She actually, I said, I don't want you to ever humor me about any of this, and any good husband should do this. Like, I'm not going to drag you to a Megadeth show if you don't like the music. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, you're either not going to go, or you're going to go by yourself or with a friend. But she at least liked going to see Kiss and a few other things that I liked. But she had to like it too, and I'm very big on that. Any woman that's willing to go on a Kiss cruise with you, but also go to WrestleMania week with you, like that's a special lady. So I learned this early on.
That's why you're married.
Dude, I mean, you got to... Common interests are key. Opposites, I'm sure they attract, but they probably don't get you too fucking far. Common interests, I believe, are key. And also not compromising in your beliefs and your relationships are very key as well. But we go on this Kiss cruise. And by the way, once we docked into Mexico, that's where I bought the engagement ring. So, yeah. She
nice.
I think she had an idea that I did, but I'm really good at hide and seek. So I kept that thing hidden in multiple places around the house for a couple of years until I finally proposed.
Wow.
But that all being said, when we were on the Kiss cruise, it was the second year. So it's still very much like, you know, they definitely got a lot of flack for making it not as special the last couple of times they've done it. And that's a fair criticism, because they basically just rolled out the show that they were going to tour under the last couple of years that they did the cruise, which I think is very lame, because fucking do the cruise, go deep. And the first few years they went deep, and that was the attraction about it. Like, you got one full show acoustic, one full show electric, guaranteed. Both shows, they're going deep on the tracks. Like, it's not a run of the mill show. Even the electric show is not a run of the mill show. So much so that I think they fucking opened with Take Me at the show that we went to. I mean, it was insane. But then like about throughout the show for the indoor electric show, this handful of fans are just hijacking the show, but in the best possible way, because between songs they're chanting, "I stole your love. I stole your love." And I can hear them, even though we're kind of further back. I was like, man, I hope they listen to that, because like, that's a big one. And they never play it.
Oh no.
And then 3/4 of the way through the show, I think Paul Stain was like, you know what? Okay, let's do it, guys. It's like, cued in. They fucking go into "I Stole Your Love." It was a beautiful thing. So like, I've had two major music moments, just based around that song, but also with Kiss. But I never thought anything could top the first time seeing them open up with that song. But even just like 12 songs deep into a set, and I'm there with the woman I know I'm going to marry, I was like, I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm like, that was even more special than even that first time, I feel. So yeah, I just think about those things sometimes, especially when I'm trying to make lists like this and I'm struggling. I was like, with those two stories, how do I not put "I Stole Your Love" on my list? And it's great. It fucking rocks. It's not played nearly enough.
Post show, what was your mother's response?
Oh shit. Yeah, that's right. I mean, she was just on and on about like how much pot people were smoking and everything. My mom, I love my mom to death. She's very straight laced. She's not quite the mom from Detroit Rock City. You know, she's not Lynn Shay, but I've heard her say things that are direct quotes from her in that movie. Let's just say. So it was a tough sell. And from that point on, if I did go to shows, begrudgingly, but also to her credit, she would just stay in the car. So I don't think anyone was more thankful to have a license, even more than me, than her. Because she took, I'll give her the rundown. She took me to that Kiss show and she went to it. And then everything else from this point on that I say are station wagon shows, if you will. I would either go by myself or mostly with a friend. Guns N' Roses.
Nice.
So, and I think she stayed up. She waited outside, I think, on one of the benches and read a book once again, of course, but good for her. I mean, pass the time, right? There's no phones, so, and she can hear the music. First of all, if you can hear the music and you also hear actual sermons in between these songs, because I'm talking about like 2 weeks after the St. Louis riots, the first show back, that's the show I went to. And not only that, she could probably hear what Axel's saying, if even faintly in the background. But every other person is walking outside of that show with a Get in the Ring motherfucker t-shirt on. And so, like, I got to hear about that later on. I made it out of that show fine. I still, like, I was 12. I should not have been at that show by myself. But I did. And then she waited in the station wagon. I went to see Skid Row and Pantera on the Slave to the Grind tour. She stayed out for that one. She took me to a Kiss signing at the same shed that I saw Kiss out for the first time when they did a signing for Alive 3. She waited 4 hours outside for that one. Good for her. I know, man. She's kind of a fucking saint. And I think that might have been the one that broke her. I don't think she ever waited ever again after that. And I think I wound up getting rides, thankfully, with older brothers and friends of mine after that. So I went to more shows than that, but those are the ones that she waited outside in the car for me. So there's that cliche. I remember there's even like a Beavis and Butthead clip, and I don't remember what video it is. He's like, they point out some nerdy fan in the crowd, goes, yeah, his dad or mom are probably waiting outside in the station wagon for him. And I was like, I took that one to heart. I was like, God, am I that kid? Am I Stewart? I don't think I was that bad. I never owned a Winger shirt.
Would you?
Would I?
Yeah.
No. Closest. I'm not. I don't mean to make fun, but I do, but I don't. At least they have the credibility of, I think every member of that band has played for Alice Cooper. So that gives you a little something in my book.
Yeah. They definitely have some talent.
There you go.
Of that band.
Yeah. They're real talented.
To wrap up here, I appreciate you obviously coming on and sharing your stories and your mom's resiliency.
She's become like the star of the show almost. I think this is great.
I need to get her on and get her for us.
So she's been she's been in bad health lately. So yeah, good mojo for her. She blew out her knee last week, which is the weirdest thing.
Oh, jeepers.
Randomly, nothing weird, just age.
Yeah. It happens.
But yeah, get well soon, Ma. She'll never hear this, and that's probably a good thing. She's never listened to a stitch of my show either, so good for her.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my mom to listen to my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want them to know what's actually in my brain.
Well, and I don't need direction either.
Yeah, there you go. You got one of those.
If you swore a little less.
You got a vaudeville pair? Is that Bill Hicks? You remember that Bill Hicks show? Bill, do you have to say the F word so much? Bob Hope doesn't use the F word. Bob Hope doesn't play the shitholes that I play, Dad.
God, your show 12 years running. Rock Strikes 10 with the TEN.
Thank you. Yeah, 10's always spelled out. Yeah.
Yep. I'll have the link in the show notes, of course. But yeah, if you want to check out more Joey and more musical education and more music variety, then you get it 10 songs each episode. No more, no less.
Thank you. Wow, you really do listen. I love it. Thank you, Gene.
Of course.
You're a brother. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time here and telling tales and sharing your music with us here today. I do appreciate it. I always appreciate when people take the time.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun. You want to get into the bonus song?
And we do, yes, because we can't end the show with just us blathering on and loving each other. We gotta send people off with a tune. I'm glad to have the bonus track because it's a way for you to tell your story, but then go out with a bang. Like, you know what? But there's a band I didn't get to talk about, or here's something new that I learned within the past year, whatever the case may be. It's your opportunity to just send us off with a smile.
Yeah. On this episode, I even made reference, and I've said this often. I say it on my show too, and it's definitely a lament and a complaint and all the stuff us middle-aged guys like to do, apparently. But I think it's apropos for me to be angry about the fact that as a rock fan, let's just say general rock, not even counting all the subgenres, but let's include them all, post 21st century, the dawn of the 2000s, I resent the fact that it sounds like a brag, but yeah, you have to be an archaeologist to get into like real quality rock music. And I don't think it's an age thing, because even when I was young and in high school and Korn was kicking off, I'll quote Chuck Klosterman, I resent Korn because they were the first band to make me feel old. and I'm in high school and I'm like, what the fuck? But general rock radio, and we can blame this on Clear Channel, we can blame this on Simon Cowell, and we can equally also blame this on things like Pitchfork. They're all to blame. Irony and snobbery and all this other stuff, I think, has been the biggest enemy of rock music. It's been gatekeeping the quality bands out of most people's ears, to where dorks like us have to go on our shows and be like, no, this is a good band. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. Who'd they ever beat? Like that kind of shit. And I was at the dawn of the 2000s, I was managing a CD store. And when you work in a record store or a CD store or any kind of place like that, that's like, you feel like a tastemaker in the similar way that I do now. But also you're compelled to try to understand. If you're a good record store person, if you're a good music fan, you are compelled to know it all ways. Like both ways, both methods of thought, like, okay, what is popular, but also what's good. And I was talking about how great 84 was and all this other stuff that we've been talking about through this episode. And I just feel in my heart of hearts, and I try to stay young at heart, but as a guy in his 40s, I feel like everybody's either 20 or 60, and I hate it. But also like rock music really got jobbed out in this 21st century so far on a mainstream tip. You talk about any band that supposedly resembles rock music that's become a superstar just in the last 20 years and change, right? It's bands that we make fun of. They're punchlines, like Nickelback and stuff like that. And I love the Foo Fighters, by the way. I love the Foo Fighters. But like the fact that they're the biggest rock band that can play stadiums, like that are like under 55 or whatever, like whatever the barometer is here. Yeah, they're not the Stones. They're not as old as the Stones or Kiss or Aerosmith or any of these bands. Like that's the biggest rock band we have. That's the one we got to lean on as far as like, okay, you're still going to get good songs here. So they're a band that is popular, that everybody kind of knows and everybody's kind of okay with. But we used to have bands like that for days. We don't have that anymore. And I learned in my 20s that it was already becoming that. So it's not an age thing. I was young at one point, and I was still saying the same exact thing. But I guess if you're out there and you want to be a fan of rock music and hard rock music and heavy metal, and it's going to be good, I hate to say it, it's not on the radio. And a good amount of it's on satellite. And honestly, the most of it's on podcasts. Because people that make these shows actually give a shit about the music and apparently like songcraft and quality and all these other things that we don't do anymore as a people. I'm laying a lot of track here, but I do that. I don't really admit this a lot on my show because I guess sometimes I'm going to and then I don't because I feel like I'm giving up the ghost here or something like that or giving out trade secrets. But it's nothing that people don't do. So let's just say it. I started reading message boards. In this day and age of Facebook and Twitter, whatever, read the comments. Yeah, the comments are garbage. Most comments are garbage. Stay off of YouTube comments, by the way. But if you follow every music page that you give a shit about, yeah, follow the bands. Yeah, the bands need the follows. Follow the bands you like. Definitely follow them. That way you know when they have a record out, because that's the only way you're going to know now. If you're on Spotify, follow the bands that you like. Even if you're just remotely interested, follow them. They need that kind of shit. But what I'm getting at is follow like big fan pages, like ones that have a lot of traffic, like Classic Rock Magazine. They've got a huge forum, Ultimate Classic Rock, like that kind of stuff. They don't just talk about old shit; they talk about new shit too, and that's the cool thing about them. And I'm a magazine kid from forever, and I still am. But yeah, follow like Kerrang and Metal Nexus and all these other places, even if you don't like all the articles they put out, and even if they get into some clickbaity shit. I can't say that enough. But get into all that stuff. And when they ask the most general GED question, and this is the one I always wait for, what are you guys listening to now? Read all the comments. Because this is the time where we're not going to go to war with everybody. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some assholes, but we're not going to go to war here. Everybody really likes to give their opinion. You know, when they're doing social media posts, like, why you ever always see podcasts and goes, what's your favorite song off of here? People love to give their opinion. So when they ask, like, what records you listen to, what bands are you listening to from this year or the last 5 years, read everything. If you really care, read everything. And even just a basic thing like 20-something years ago, I was addicted to the metal sludge boards. First of all, very entertaining. I mean, Troll City, but also, like, I learned about a lot of bands doing that. And yeah, you're going to find out why people really like the Third Winger album. That's in there too. But every now and then, even that post would come up. What are you guys listening to right now? What's come out in the last 5-10 years that you're listening to? You get a bunch of different responses. There's some amazing bands out there. You know this, Gene. You know it better than most. And I'm using this bonus song as kind of just a representation for every band I've gotten into in the last 20 years. Because I don't think I've gotten into any of these bands organically through the radio or, you know, whatever MTV has become or any of these kind of mediums, VH1 Classic, whatever. It's either been through live shows, which is always key and still great and my favorite way to do it. But yeah, wait for those, like, what do you guys listen to? Or hell, if you've got a decent enough social media outlook, ask your friends what they're listening to and have them tag all their friends in it. That's how you find really good stuff. I found my favorite bands of all time the last 20 years through doing all those stupid things, but it's been worth it. So rewarding. The band that really opened my eyes to, like, there's a whole other world out there now. It's a different world. Let's be part of it. And it was a band I'd heard about on and off through the 90s, but I never heard one damn song by them. They get write-ups in Kerrang and some other random places, always European because they're European. But it was the band The Wild Hearts. That's almost become a punchline for older, earlier podcasters because that's kind of our band. But, and I could name some names, but I won't. I don't talk about people I'm not friends with anymore. But this band, when I heard him, I was like, holy shit. And I was working at a CD store. So just happened one day, we got like one of their best ofs. It was like the American best of them that was on Gearhead Records or something like that. And it was called Riff After Riff. How am I not going to listen to an album called Riff After Riff? Like, okay, that's obviously going to be a rock album, right? So I put it on and I was just song after song after song. And I was like, man, this is it. Oh, this is the band I'm going to follow into the sun now. This is my new thing. And because of a band like that, first of all, if you just get into the Wild Hearts period, the family tree is insane. It's not just Ginger Wildheart, the tortured genius of the band, writing all these great songs that only people that have a little bit of an issue mentally, like a Brian Wilson or whatever, people that can approach this kind of stuff. This guy should be like a Max Martin or something, writing hits for like Britney Spears and stuff like that. But he can write a 3-minute pop song, but he really likes to take those, you know, deviations off the road. And here's the solo section. Here's where we get a little bit proggy and we're going to the jungle here for a little bit, but then we're going to come back with the chorus at the very end. He just won't edit his songs. He should be like the ultimate song doctor for anybody on the radio this century, but he's not. And that's why. But, you know, he's definitely a near genius at least, but like the family tree of this band, there's so much stuff to get into. And he's kind of like an Al Jorgensen type. He's had a lot of different bands under different names and stuff like that. But even if you just stay in the pocket of the Wild Hearts, you're going to have a good time. If you love rock music, when I bought Earth versus the Wild Hearts, I think the hype sticker on it said, the Beach Boys meets Motorhead.
Wow.
And that's, that is exactly what they are. There's a lot of punk rock in there and a lot of hardcore in there, but there's so much good pop sensibility and they like to do harmonies. It's kind of just, you know, like, especially if you guys are like into King's X a lot, and I love King's X, but if you're like, man, you know, if King's X had a little more punk and or, you know, like in them, like that's kind of what you get out of it. I feel like that's a good example. But yeah, I just love it because it's all of my musical tastes, like in this one band that makes comparably good rock songs, but they aren't boring either. So they're not stale or anything like that. So they represent like my 21st century rock experience. And because of bands like that, I just got into like, And I was already into like the Swedish garage bands at the time, the Hives, the Helicopters. There's so much great stuff in there. Sweden just killing it. Refused, International Noise Conspiracy, Imperial State Electric. I could go on. So that's a great scene in and of itself. But like the fact that there's great bands all over the world, and I got into Denko Jones just a few years after that, and really got into Hardcore Superstar after that. Some of the best rock and roll bands of all time that honestly any of these bands could hang with any of these other icons we put on a pedestal. That's what it's all about. Like they all leveled up and evolved the sound and all this other stuff. And yeah, I'm going to be that podcaster. It's like, man, you really should get into the Wild Hearts, get into Ginger solo stuff, get into CJ solo stuff, get into all of it. There's a lot it's an intimidating catalog. It's not Frank Zappa intimidating, but it's large. It's probably Devin Townsend size. Let's go with that. That's the best I could do. Anytime I'd make a mix CD for anybody after that, because I would be doing that. I was doing podcasts long before I had one. But anytime I make a mix CD, I'd go with this one just because they probably don't even like this song. He probably doesn't even like this song. He probably thinks it's too simple or whatever. I don't know. But I just like the sentiment of something as basic as the song title is called Better Than Cable, and it's a love song. I'm like, what better way to tell somebody how much you think of them, that they're better than cable? Like, I'd rather spend the night with you than on the couch again watching TV, which is what I do every night. I love to do it, and I'm a creature of habit. But that's how I viewed this song. So this was a big song for me. It sounds dumb and everything, but I just like the fact that if I was going to make a greeting card, I'd put You're Better Than Cable on it, but Ginger already beat me to it. So
yeah, Hallmark missed the boat on that one.
Totally.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I've heard the name of the band before, but never got dug into them. Of course, you mentioned Danko Jones. You didn't talk about another podcast darling podcast hosters. That's
he's
another
actually
one
but he's actually a podcaster too. He doubled down on it. Like we love him so much, and honestly, like he really doesn't have a bad record. He's got a couple okay ones, but most of them are just so good. I don't know. It's like it's either the like be really crazy and innovative and wild, or give us that double cheeseburger again that we love so much, that AC/DC gives us and Motorhead gives us. There's no lesser law, whatever path you take. Just be good at it. And that's what I think. Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff that can be done. I mean, around that time in 2000, there was a band called Self. Sinzak knows who they are. They put out a record called Gizmodry. The whole thing was played on toys, but it sounds like a real record. It doesn't sound like toys most of the time. It's like, yeah, I love that shit. As I was saying, I referenced Twin Temple earlier. You ever heard a band like that? No. Somebody figured it out. I'm getting into a TED Talk here. I really need to stop this part of it. Like, be your own boss. Create your own band. I didn't, but you should. I didn't become a rock star, but take it from me, kids. Do it before you move out of the house. You need to make your shit happen before you start paying one bill. And there are exceptions to this rule. But overall, that would be my advice if you're out there listening. You want to be a rock star? Do it before you get kicked out of the house.
Sounds like the perfect note to go out on.
Okay. You got to give me the cane at some point or I'll just keep going.
Life advice with Joey Haney.
This is Joey Rock and Roll talking. This is the evolved version of Joey Haney.
Perfect.
Gene, by the way, you are a scholar and a gentleman, and I really enjoyed coming on the show. I understand you might want to wait a few years, but I'll come back whenever you want. So, and I'll get on any of those catalog assessments. That'll save me a lot of grief from yelling at the radio or phone when I'm out walking, listening to your show.
Oh, geez.
I want in, sir.
Danger
I didn't become a rock star, but take it from me, kids. Do it before you move out of the house.
Thank you for listening to Disciples of the Watch. This episode was produced and edited by Gene Vogel. All music is property of the artist or the publisher. Please buy music and support the art we all love. Editing on this episode was done by Gene Vogel. Check out our website, dotwpod.com, for show notes, links, and more information on the show, as well as connections to social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the show using your preferred podcast application, or use our FeedBurner RSS feed listed on our website. Plug it into your browser or whatever app you're using, and then you will get all of the goodness moving forward. And you can also download the show as MP3 files from dotwpod.com. If you'd like to support the show, please click on the support us link at our website. As well, we have Patreon, so you can do a monthly contribution if you so desire, or purchase some of our merch from our website. Thank you for listening, friends, and stay heavy.
Let's just kick some motherfucking ass. What do you say?